Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Platinum Endurance Championship Indianapolis 500-mile race. Last week's 2 days of qualifying over the weekend are all done and dusted. We are here for the most prestigious special event of the Platinum Endurance Championship as a community. We'll have 200 laps, 500 miles up ahead of us here. It's going to be a long, chaotic race. More on that in a little bit. But I am delighted to be joined by, unfortunately, not Mike Wayne Robinson, but Jack James from last week is here, the MVP. Welcome back, Jack, and it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's amazing to see you as well, Julien. It's exciting to be a surprise addition to this commentary box here for today's running of the Indianapolis 500. First race in the booth for me, so it'll be exciting to see how the race looks from up here rather than down there on the racetrack.
100%. So we got a few more seconds left in practice. Qualifying was last week, and Nicholas Pressey is on the pole. Tried to get a hold of him for an interview before the race, but unfortunately we weren't able to get him. So they will line up on the front row here in a few moments' time. But Jack, when we look to qualifying, who do you think, except for the Pressey Motorsports guys, who could be competitive here tonight?
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like we've got a few favourites in the field at the moment. One being Matt Wagner. He's a votive league clear favourite for this season outside of the Platinum Endurance Championship. He's had some strong results recently as well in the Horizon IndyCar Series at Michigan. We also have some really good experience in the field this evening. We've got Rick Raven with, I think it's 30 years of sim racing experience. I'm not sure whether that's only in IndyCar, but we've got some insane levels of experience behind the wheel to hopefully make some really interesting racing. Looking further down the field, we also have John Christensen and Hugo Galaz from the Velocity Online Racing team. Hugo is second at the moment in the Horizon IndyCar Series. He finished second at Kentucky in the Horizon IndyCar Series behind Liam O'Sullivan, who is the organizer of the league in a Velocity Online Racing 1-2. We've also got Brandon Thayer, who is, I believe, third on the grid this evening, who was very, very fast in qualifying last week. So I think it should be a good race.
So we've got some keys to the race, which I'll also let you cover here, Jack, which should really promote some interesting racing, including the weather.
Yeah, so it looks like today the drivers are going to be given one fast repair. So that's if you get unfortunately collected in, well, hopefully not too many cautions that we'll have here this evening. You can drag the car back to the pit lane should it be able to make it there under its own steam. You will be stopped in the box, and within a flash you will have all your damage gone and repaired, and you'll be able to rejoin the circuit, which leads me on to my next point, which is the lucky dog. So that is turned on for today. The last driver who is a lap down will be able to unlap themselves and join the back of the field, which should also make some good strategic variety should drivers get caught up in incidents early on or want to go off strategy for whatever reason. And also, as you mentioned, Julien, the cool trap temps that we've got here this evening, or today rather, this afternoon, should make for some really good racing. The cooler track temps means less tyre degradation, which means more grip in the tyres for longer, which means cars can follow closer, which means more entertaining for us and obviously everyone at home watching.
And those cool track temperatures could also lead to a bit of a packy race, especially towards the end of this thing. So hopefully we'll keep as many cars as possible in the field today. But cars are lining up on the grid. It will be a 2-wide initial rolling off the grid, and then we're going to form up to rows of 3 in typical Indy 500 style. So don't be alarmed by the cars being too wide at the moment. They will form up into formation. So it's time to get this party started here with the starting grid in just a second. So we'll wait for everybody to grid up to make sure all the graphics are displayed properly. Firstly, I want to thank Liam O'Sullivan, the organizer of the events, for letting me do this, along with you, Jack, for being here, and everybody else who is involved in making this race, this series, and everything else possible, including Andrew Schultz from SKS Graphics for the beautiful overlays that we got. So here we go for the first of, I believe there will be 2 pace laps. So here's the starting grid. It's an all Pressey Motorsports front row with Nicholas Pressey leading the way for his team on the inside of row number 1 on the pole. Then in the middle we have got Bryce Saucier racing on Roger's account, but it is very much Bryce Racing. Then we've got Mitchell Semedo on the outside of row number 1. Moving on to row number 2, we've got Matt Wagner for Track Rocket Racing. On the inside, then we've got Hugo Gallas for Velocity Online Racing, and Rev 'em Up Racing's Dan Inch sporting the Alzheimer's Association livery. Moving on to row number 3, we have Casey Povolones for Votive Racing, Rick Ravon for Black Sheep Motorsports, and John Christensen also for Velocity Online Racing. Moving on to row 4, Kostek Solowich for Furious Sim Sport, the first of I believe 2 entries in the race. Then we've got the 2 Jordan Motorsport Chevys of Jordan Hale and Brandon Taylor on the outside and middle of row 4. Row 5 is Lucas Santos for Screeching Moose Motorsports in the number 5, then Jacob Wilson for Rev Racing, and Rodin Eeftink in the number 18 on the outside of row 5. As the cars continue to form up into their formation. Then we've got João Castro, Ray Drissa, Lilac Zier. Shane Coker and Javier Talavera are gonna complete the grid.
Green.
And I believe we've got the green flag in the air, but we're gonna go for one more pace lap. But that is your starting grid of, I believe, 21 starters, if I counted that correctly very quickly. 22 starters. So Jack, 200 laps coming up here. Have you done any racing yourself on ovals like this?
Yes. Well, I've done limited, most of my IndyCar oval experience does come from this racetrack, but not on this newer model of Dallara IR-18 that is currently in the iRacing simulator. When I was doing my Indianapolis racing, it was very much a race of managing the turbulent air from the cars in front. It was very difficult if you were more than 3 or so cars back to make some overtakes on circuit, which is why we have been given some cooler track temps today to help and promote that wheel-to-wheel racing as the race goes on. But away from IndyCar, I've done a tiny bit of NASCAR racing, nothing really to be proud of. I'm probably more of a super speedway merchant more than anything. But I know enough about the IndyCar as to know that if you're starting lower than the top 6 in this pack today, you're going to have a bit more of a difficult time moving forward on raw pace unless you are some sort of wizard at managing the dirty air, which I'm expecting some of the guys here today to be doing just that.
Well, it might be Brickyard 400 weekend coming up over in the NASCAR world, but it is very much the month of May for the Platinum Endurance Championship. We are back home again in Indiana, and we got 3 car rows lining up to start the race. The green flag is about to fly for the Platinum Indy 500, and Nicholas Pressey is going to lead the field to green. We are underway for 500 miles, perhaps a little bit more here at the Brickyard.
Yeah, it seems to be everyone's getting away well as they go into turn 1, as we got some side-by-side already between one of the VOR cars, and I didn't quite see who that was, as we got the front 3 or so, the front 4 I think that is, actually making a nice little gap really early on here, as we look at the midfield now coming down the back straight. Still some more side-by-side action, but I think we'll surely see these guys sort of fan out into single file for now as we see a big move into turn 3. I'm not sure who that was. But everything's sort of planning out a lot cleaner than probably what some expected.
Yeah, there was around John Christensen and Dan Inch there on row 4 that was. But lap number 1 is already complete, and Rick Ravon is about to pop out and make a move to the inside here of the number 8. And that is Mitchell Semedo there, losing a spot. So let's bring the timing ticker up. There we go. Looking beautiful with all the colors. We couldn't show you this last week, but now it is in full force here, as we've got one of the Fury Sim Sport guys making a move. That is Kostek Solowich on the inside now of Matt Wagner and Casey Povolones as well.
He's really getting feisty here in these early laps as he tries to have a look at the car in front of him. I think that was Povolones as well, as he's now going to go to the inside. He's going to get the run. Will he be given the room into turn 1? Yes, he will. And Povolones backs out of it and sort of says, you know what, we are 4 laps into this 200 lap race. I'm going to sit behind you, potentially save a bit of fuel, open up my strategy window a little bit more, and that is job done.
Yeah, Revon got around Gallas as well, so he's now going to chase the top 3. And Samido has got back into 3rd place. I think I was confused a little bit. That was the number 6 of Wagner that losing a spot a few moments ago. But Samido in the 8th, still running with his 2 teammates, Saucier and Pressy at the front. Rick Revon is going to challenge that team alliance there at the front. In the meantime, though, Denenge did lose a few spots off the line as John Christensen gets to the inside now of Matt Wagner in that number 6, losing another spot, probably saving a bit of fuel knowing Matt Wagner with his plenty of experience gonna just ease into this race and just see where he is at the end of this thing.
Yeah, we're starting to see a few groups sort of start to form. I know those front 4 are really starting to pull away a little bit. Oh, that's very close. We were nearly close there to our first caution. I believe that was the number 11, which I think I am wrong. That is Lilac Zia. It's the 89. They got really close in the short shoot there. What they need to be careful of is you see 2 cars in front, you've got a massive gap. These guys really need to sort of get their head down, probably stop fighting 6 laps into this thing. Do what I know to be swapping drafts, what some drivers will do at the top level of IndyCar racing, especially here at Indianapolis, as the car in front, that is Jordan Hale, going very wide at turn 2. What some of these guys will do is swap their draft going into turn 3 and into turn 1 to try and gain a few tenths here and there over the course of a lap to try and either close gaps, pull away, and everything in between, as they still decide to go side by side out of turn 4, clearly not listening to a word I've just said. But to be honest, it's giving us some good racing, so I'm not going to say no to this.
Speaking of good racing, at the front of the field we've got a lead change. Bryce Saucier, sorry, that's going to confuse us a little bit. I think maybe make us misspeak sometimes. But it is Bryce Saucier Racing on Roger's account. Bryce going to the lead there, passing Nicholas Pressy. Probably swapping the draft like you mentioned. And Rick Rayvon very content sitting in 4th place at the moment. Solovic got by Gallus a few moments ago too, like we covered. So that is the top 6 running at the moment. And Dan Enge has got around Lilac Zier as well. And something that should also be worth mentioning is Matt Wagner pitting on the last 2 laps ago, sorry. Not sure if that was due to damage or not. I'll try to figure that out really quickly if I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange to see a pit stop come so early, less than 10 laps into this race, so I doubt that will be strategy related. I'm sure he either would have miscalculated some of that dirty air driving that these guys will be managing throughout this 200 lap race, maybe caught a little bit of damage on the outside wall, and even if you get what's called a 0x here in iRacing, that can still affect your straight line speed in these Indy cars, as round here you're running, as we said last week many a time, you're running flat out for the entire lap. Any sort of slight damage, slight miscalculation with a wall or a tap can really affect your overall straight line speed. As we now ride on board with Dan Enge in the 52. And one thing I did want to mention actually was that 4-car train that we saw leading this race very early on, I think 3 or 4 laps ago, has now very much so become, I believe, a 6 or even 8-car train, as the fighting and the lead change up front has been a perfect example to show everyone at home how much time you can lose from even making one overtake, as we look at Rick Raven now leading the race from Bryce Saucier, and the 2 Prezi Motorsport cars now running 3rd and 4th from the front of the grid. So it's not been an amazing opening 9 or 10 laps from those guys, as we see a car in the background actually slam into the outside wall and the exit of turn 1. I don't know if we'll get a caution for this.
Yes, there
but
is a
it's
caution.
yes. I'd love to see what happened there. I saw that fly into the wall on the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where the controls here for this thing is, because I see the session events, but it's not in the right order. And when I try to get everything in the right order, it's not really showing up properly. So please do bear with me for a quick second as I try to figure it out. But Rick Rayvon has taken the lead whilst all of that was going on.
You know what that will really benefit is it will benefit our driver that's just pitted about 3 laps ago. He will be able to now reset. Hopefully he hasn't been lapped. I haven't really kept a close eye on that. But if he has been managing to avoid getting lapped, he will get the lucky dog anyway, actually. I've just reminded myself. So he will now circulate back to the rear of the field and will pretty much have I'm going to say 7, 8 laps, I think it was, fresher fuel than the rest of the field here. So this could really play into his hands early on in this 200-lap race here at Indianapolis.
So it was João Castro that crashed, but still, still no replay here. This is really interesting how ATVO can work like this.
Well, I reckon it could potentially be a sense of trying to be a little bit too confident into turn 1, because it didn't look like there was anyone else involved in the incident. It just looked like Castro flew up the racetrack and just smashed the wall on the exit or outside of turn 1. From the angle that I saw, it didn't give me too much, as one of the cars in front of the Reiter Engineering car has seemed to be completely disintegrated itself. I don't know whether that's a netcode issue. It seems to be, as the car's driving perfectly fine, as we now see everyone pile into the pit lane. I doubt this will be for new tyres. I reckon everyone here will just be topping up on fuel, which now completely gets rid of Matt Wagner's advantage that I mentioned just a minute ago. But this is the first of many races off pit road, as we see now who has practiced their box and who hasn't, as we see drivers get close to each other. I believe everyone seems to be okay. Passing is on through the pit lane, so there will be no contact there, I believe. As we look at Luke Santos spending a little bit longer probably than required in his pit box, as I believe it was Javier Talavera who stayed out, and so he now cycles to P2 overall behind F-Tink, who I believe also didn't pit. So they effectively now lead the race of drivers who haven't pitted, whereas I'm not sure who actually was the first driver to pit. I'll have to double check on that. But effectively now there will be 2 races going on. One with the original strategy of running the fuel tank to the end, and then everyone who's sort of come into the pit now under this caution are sort of running with a 12 or 10 lap newer fuel run. So they may have an advantage, they may have a disadvantage. We'll see as the race pans out. But I don't know. Julien, would you have taken this pit stop? I probably would.
100%. You get unlimited tires as well. So yeah, even though Wagner doesn't have as much of an advantage, he will have the track position, which he did kind of lose off the line there. So that is going to help him a little bit. But yeah, we've got a restart coming up in a few moments as I scroll through all the session events here.
I mean, yeah, so talking about this opening stint of this race so far, we've seen a number of things, I think, that are worth talking about as we continue to circulate under caution here. Is we've really seen the effect of having an overtake being done, or making an overtake, or even going side by side for 1 or 2 corners, as we saw that front 4 with the 2 Prezi Motorsport cars, and that group was sort of rounded off originally by Raven in the number 1, but we saw a change for the lead, and then suddenly that 4-car train became a 6, 7, 8 car train. And that's something that these guys really need to be careful of. If they want to preserve their track position and they want to potentially build a gap and secure a very solid lead early on, they want to sort of avoid this. Yeah, look at this. I mean, 3-4 laps prior to this, we had a 4-car train for the lead, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7, 8 within draft range now as we watch this replay of Rick Raven. Sorry, no, this is live, I think, actually. Sorry, my bad.
This is now live. Yeah, there was a replay really quickly. Just showing what Rick Raven did there to take the lead initially, but now, of course, restarting 4th. So, pace car is going to come into the pits here. I do believe, yes, lights are out. So, we're going to go back to green flag racing with the Rodin Eftink leading us to green.
Green's out, green flag,
And we are back underway here at the Brickyard. It's a very nice and easy restart by everybody there. As I say that, Talavera losing his spot immediately, 2 spots immediately, as Rick Raven is going to challenge to the inside as well of turn 2 immediately as well. So there goes Rick back up into the top 3, Matt Wagner up to 2nd. And Wagner now going to chase Avtink for the lead, as we see Saucier pulling out to the inside of Talavera 2, choosing to back off and not go for the gap yet.
I want to say that was the number 9 of Provolones going onto the back straight, going very wide, potentially even tapping the outside wall. But yeah, for the Reiter engineering car of Talavera, that's probably one of the most awful restarts you could have here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I was really careful for Avtink, who has now lost the lead. He had quite a big gap to P2 on the start of the of that lap there on the restart, and I believe he would be pretty easy picking. Yeah, big lift there. Being pretty easy pickings down this huge back straight into turn 3, and I believe that is probably where Wagner has got the move done and now leads by just about a tenth of a second, as we continue to see that Reiter engineering car dropping like a stone through this field, almost moving out of the way of other competitors, it looks like.
So we're watching Semido's onboard here, started on the outside of row number 1, just following in the traffic here, and there is Talavera losing even more spots now to Solovic as well as Pressy, who passed a few moments ago. So 2 of the Pressy Motorsports guys have got through. Now it's just up to Semido to do the same. Up the gears, down the backstretch again. And to the inside Semido will go. Should be a pretty straightforward pass, with Talavera's car not handling the way he wants, as Lalexir gonna have a little go as well now to the inside and easily clears Talavera. So Talavera really struggling with that car, and as is the Reiter engineering team as a whole, I think, at the moment. But Jonas Weber not really making too many moves either, as we got a battle for the lead here with Roden Avtink going back to the lead past Matt Wagner.
This is interesting. This will be really good to see that this leading pack, because of that overtake, we'll see how much this bunches up now, and you can see 3 cars within what looks like just under a tenth of a second as we now look, and there's another change for the lead. So Wagner goes back to the lead of the race, and I wonder if this is what we were mentioning earlier, with drivers working together into turn 3 and into turn 1 to sort of pull away as we ride on board with Rick Raven. You can see that gap pull out ever so slightly compared to going into turn 3. There was a bit more of a gap as he now is under pressure from Saucier, who has a look to the inside, doesn't make the move, has a think about it, thinks better of it, backs out, and now we continue to ride on board with Rick Raven down the back straight.
Yeah, that's another thing that should probably be mentioned. The clean air is really king here. Even after the many updates, how realistic iRacing may be, the inside line with all the dirty air down there is not the preferred line in traffic. The outside line very much is. So Rick using that to his advantage at the moment to hold on to that race lead. As in the meantime, Wagner and Avtink continue to fight it out for the lead up there. I think Wagner is trying to work together with Avtink, but Avtink is a little new to the IndyCar community and the scene in general of open wheel racing on ovals. So probably doesn't really know how to work together effectively, at least. Maybe knows the principles of it, but how to execute is of course a completely different story. As now Saucier is going to line up Rick Raven down the back straight again. See if Saucier can pull this one off here.
Looks like Raven's been sort of boxed in there as just before they turned into turn 3, and that's going to be job done for Saucier. What's really interesting actually is Avtink having sort of less experience than the guys around him. It'll be really interesting to see how that storyline, if you want to call it, unfolds throughout this race. You know, he's sort of the new guy in the racing scene. These guys have probably raced hundreds of thousands of laps, you know, against each other, know what each other are going to do, can be able to read his move, you know, be able to defend against this, defend against that, whereas that number 10 car is completely new, so they would have very limited running against him, as Wagner now creates the massive snake down the back straight. But it'll be really interesting to see if he gets a bit more feisty towards the end and starts to make some stuff happen.
Just look at those cars flying by here, coming out of Ford. Just look at this. Oh, that's just awesome to see.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
just
something we talked about last week, by the way, during qualifying, is the topic of wickers or gurney flaps on the rear wings of everybody else. So I just want to take a quick moment to look at those here. Starting with the leaders, I suppose would be a good shot. So Wagner is running the first step wicker. As we move on to Avtink here, running third at the moment, also running the first step. Saucier got up to second, also running the first step. I think everybody here in the top 10 more or less is running that first step wicker. And then here is Dan Enge not running the wicker at all, so he is very light on downforce. So he is hoping that towards the end of the race, the track temperatures are going to cool off a little bit, and he will be at the front of the field, so he can pull a little bit more speed down the straights and maybe hold on to the lead that way. But yeah, for the most part, as I mentioned, basically everybody running that first step wicker as we scroll through everybody. So yeah, Dan Enge really is the only exception to the rule at the moment.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned actually, because there were some guys that were running this first step of the wicker, so the smaller gurney flap on that rear wing, as we saw with 90% of our drivers there. They, surely in qualifying you'd want a faster car if you've got the clean air, you've got maximum downforce, you've got no turbulent air from cars around you. But some of the guys were running that in qualifying as well, so it really sort of is a good display of the setup variety that we've seen throughout qualifying and not so much in the race here, as everyone wants that little bit more downforce to be able to make driving behind that car in front a little bit easier. As we now see once again the cars swerving right, swerving left to try and follow the draft originally set by Mr. Matt Wagner, leading this race from Saucier, from F-Tink and Raven, the top 4.
So just want to go back a few moments here. This is to Lucas Santos getting past Shane Coker for P15. This is way down in the pack, and one thing you mentioned earlier before the first yellow was the gaps between all the cars there. That yellow of course got everybody closer together, but now those gaps are very much starting to shrink back out again. So Lucas Santos making that move happen, very important for his race to not drop too far back, and hopefully for him he can climb back forward. But yeah, everybody is kind of following Matt Wagner's line at the front there, probably just saving fuel for the most part. I don't think anybody really wants to race at this stage in the race. We've only got 24 laps in the books, so still 176 laps to go. So there's plenty of time to make those moves happen and get to the front. There's just no need for that yet.
I think with the cars being so fragile, with as I mentioned, under caution we had. You can, that was when Matt Wagner pitted, I mentioned that originally, where, you can have a slight tap with the wall and it can even come up as a 0x in iRacing, and you can still have some cosmetic damage that hurts the straight line speed, and these cars are so fragile, I don't think these guys want to even risk that being 25 laps into this race. They'd rather sit behind, save a bit of fuel, open up their pit margins, and maybe hope for a mistake or hope for someone to, get a bit desperate, as we see. Whoa!
That was Lucas Santos getting in the wall.
Almost.
Or did he?
Yeah, as I said, whoa! Again, very, very close to the outside wall. And all it takes is one lapse of concentration like that to pick up some damage, and then your steering's bent, you can't turn left anymore, and then that can be the starting point of another caution.
And that was right after a little battle with Brandon Thayer there. The Jordan Motorsports guys really were struggling last week for speed, and it seems as though they're doing the same again today, running outside the top. Thayer is running 15th, but I don't see Hill on the top 15, do I? Actually, he is 12th, never mind. So, yeah, outside of the top 10, those guys not really able to keep speed with the top 10, unfortunately for them. But they are still running, and as I mentioned, it's a long race, so as long as they do that, I think they will be mostly fine. Same case for John Christensen, just riding around. I suspect Hugo Gallas in the top 10 doing the same thing with Dan Enge. Dan Enge used to be a VOR driver in the past, so I would assume they will be working together on a co-opetition kind of manner. Of course, still fighting it out, but also not making each other's lives too difficult, knowing how everybody races, and I guess the setup alliance that is still there as well between all those guys. So yeah, Aefting now getting back up to second into turn 3 last lap. Aefting gonna try and go for the lead maybe into turn 1? No, decides to wait.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed is when F-Tink has been following, especially Wagner in the lead of this race, he's been following so much closer than what P3, who is Saucy at the moment, has been following him. So I wonder whether he's just using his front tyres a little bit more than everyone around him, and therefore having to work his weight jacker a little bit more as we follow on board with him into turn 3. And one thing I wanted to mention actually is our pole sitter Nicholas Pressey down in P5, so he's obviously not had the start to this race that he would have wanted. Whether that could be strategy related or not, I'm not sure. But being, P5, 28 laps in, it's sort of knocking on the door of what some would call danger zone.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the amount of traffic you set your car up for. You can, of course, run a little bit more wing angle, which we can't see. We can't see the gurneys, but the wing angle is also going to play a pretty big factor here. Some people running the maximum angle of 2 degrees that you get at these big tracks to follow easier. So, of course, that's going to help you the further down in the pack you are compared to somebody who might be running less downforce, like Dan Enge, who is clearly struggling at the moment. But yeah, it's really about balancing what your car can do, as Saucier has a look there for P2 on Eefting. But it's about balancing what your car can handle in traffic, and also just the level of patience that you really need to execute in these early stages.
Yeah, no, so looking at the lap counter, we've got, we're 30 laps into this race. I recall a fuel tank in one of these cars going around 50 laps, is that correct, or is it closer to 60?
30 laps. It's 70 liters, 18.5 gallons, US gallons for the Americans watching. That's about 30 laps under green in clean air with a little bit of safe.
Yes.
You can go as far as 34 in traffic.
Getting my liters and laps mixed up. I apologize for that. But yeah, so these guys stopped. When was our caution? It was sort of I want to say lap 8, 9, 10. That was that sort of region. So we won't see these guys stopping at least till sort of lap 40, I think, and then that's when we'll start to see who is saving more than others and who is sort of working together in terms of strategy. Because I recall when I've done some Indy races here, you have guys that have been saving the fuel together, and they sort of tend to pit together, and then they sort of end up in that overlap period where you've almost got 2 packs in a velodrome style race. Racing against each other, one yet to pit, one already being pit, and that sort of then is really interesting to see which train can work together almost to gain the lead, as that's a big switch going into turn 3. I almost thought we were going to lose a front wing there.
Yeah, I think Matt probably thought something similar. That's why he's trying to stay in the lead as hard as he is. Already has that 17 laps today. Bryce Saucier, sorry, that's gonna mess me up a couple times. I really do apologize. But Bryce Saucier led 3 laps today. Gonna try to lead some more, as now Rodin Eefting back to the inside of Matt Wagner. Has led 4 laps today. I think that might be 5 coming up here shortly. But those guys clearly racing it out at the moment. I assume we're coming up to pit stops though, which is probably the main reason why, as I would assume that Eefting is going to be the first one to peel in after leading most of those laps on the restart together with Matt Wagner.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether Eefting has managed to save enough fuel to go that extra lap or 2. But I mean, to be honest, from the way he's been driving and the moves he's been making, I think I'm going to doubt that extra lap quite a lot. So we may see him being one of the first of the early pitters to come into that pit lane. And what we're going to see is potentially people getting caught out by that pit line. I've been caught out many times before by missing the braking point, going too harsh on the brakes, locking the front tires, and all manner of bad things can happen entering the pit lane, from black flags to damage to not being able to go any further.
So Lilac Zier has been battling Nicholas Pressey for P5. Zier got by and then got passed again by Pressey. And there we go, we got pit stops coming up. Eefting is going to go to the pits. Slow it down. Yes, slows it down perfectly.
Looks like he was a little bit sideways going into pit road there, but yeah, managed to get it slowed down. So this is quite interesting. I didn't see anyone. Oh no, Talavera in the background has come into the pit lane with him, but I don't think the as he's missed his box. There we go. So our first pitter and our first mistake, that could be quite big, even though it's a tiny miss, maybe half a meter, maybe a meter or so. But that time that you spend finding reverse, backing up and braking again to get it stopped in your pit box can be really, really big in terms of how much time you gain or lose in the pit stops, as we now see Matt Wagner come into the pit lane.
And he slows it down from 205 as the overlay struggles to update there. But 60 miles per hour is the pit lane speed limit. But yes, a quick little overshoot of the box just like that, even half a meter like you mentioned, is going to cost him pretty significantly. I think Rodin is going to lose around 4 seconds on the racetrack with that. So you go about 4 times the speed on the track itself. So Matt Wagner in the box, pretty faultless pit entry. And the stop itself doesn't look too bad either from the outside angle. So Wagner is off and away, which does hand the lead over to Bryce Saucier, who stays out one more lap, including Rick Ravon and Nicolas Pressy, as well as Lilac Zier, who has been battling Nicolas Pressy here for the last few laps. So let's see how this top 4 is going to shake out at the moment. Of course, with the pit cycles being underway at the moment. We've got more people pitting as well.
So now we're starting to see that train, well, not necessarily a train, but more that, 2 groups on the racetrack starting to form. And it'll be really interesting to see, which one comes out on top. The early pitters, I'll call them, haven't got off to the best start with, a couple of mistakes in pit road, missing the pit box, having to reverse. So I think that we might see a different top 5 or so once these pit stops have cycled through.
Yeah, just for reference on the gap on the ticker there, you saw it for just a brief moment, but there's 2 seconds between Matt Wagner and Rodin Eefting. Right there on the ticker you can see it. 35.7 behind the leader with Matt Wagner, and then there's a around about 1.8, 1.9 second gap to Rodin Eefting there on the overlay. You can see there, 37.2 behind. So yeah, that clearly did lose Rodin a little bit of time, less than I thought it would have, but still not ideal, as I think Rodin is right on the edge of that drafting range. So Rodin has got his work cut out to catch that gap back up. Sorry, as we are getting ready for a few more pit stops here in about a lap or 2. But the top 4 do stay out one more lap.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we see multiple cars come in at the same time. Whether they'll be preempting, staying out the way of each other, not locking brakes, hitting each other, causing unnecessary damage. And what that might actually do is hand precious tenths of a second back to the likes of Eftink, who has pitted earlier in this race. And, that deficit that we saw potentially being a lot bigger, maybe being reduced ever so slightly as we look at Matt Wagner, who was our leader of the race, I believe. No, he was second place before coming into the pits, and you can see that gap there as we now go 2 wide into turn 1. And I believe this is in lap for some, as everything's sort of starting to kick off now and people want positions before pit road.
Yeah, big scrap for the lead right there as Saucier now goes to the lead. So I assume that Saucier is for sure gonna pit, because otherwise I don't really think you would want to lead if you still want to keep saving fuel. But Lilac Zier now to the inside of Pressy, and now gonna look to the inside as well of Saucier. So Zier now to the lead as Samido gets by Ravon as well, as the ticker finally updates, struggling to keep up. It is. But no, everybody here in this top 7 now stays out, as Gallus, he was 2 seconds behind this group just a lap or 2 ago, and he has now caught all the way back up to that group. He's right with them. So maybe they're trying to save fuel to go, doing quick maths here. Yeah, they're trying to make this in 4 more stops to the end of the race, I think, trying to get to lap 46. So I'm not sure how they can do that, but I'll be very interested to see how, if they do, because then I might need to know that for my future races here. But Zier holds off Saucier for the lead at the moment, as Ravon looking to catch back up to that top 4. And no, they're staying out again. Very interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah, as you say, we see a large battle sort of kicking off for half a lap or so there. And then that allows the likes of Gallas to catch back, near 2 seconds on that leading pack. And, that's something that you really want to try and avoid. I don't know what the deal was there. Maybe someone made a mistake or a brush with the wall, as we look at Jordan Hale doing exactly that. I don't think there was any damage, but...
Oh, there was. You got a meat ball.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, this is on board with Jordan Hale here. Just, you can already see the car is pushed loose off of turn 1. Trying to catch up to the end of that little group, and yeah, just the aero wash and also the looseness from the worn tires just mean that there's no real way of saving the car for Jordan there. So Jordan Hill's day, I would assume, is done. And just look at the wash on these tires.
Yeah, so unfortunate. I mean, with a fast repair, he might be able to get that back out, but it looked like he was stopped in the box for way longer than he needed to be. Potentially even towing the car, that might be. But you know, if he could get it back to the pits under his own steam, I would be 99.9% sure that he would want to do that and would have done that. But yeah, the fact that he was stationed for so long probably indicates that his day is done. Unfortunate, considering he was looking pretty racy, actually. I mean, you know, he was moving up the field, making a few nice moves, potentially in the mix for some good battles.
Speaking of battles, we got a battle for the lead here. Saucier gets by Zier again, and now Zier gonna line Saucier back up for another pass down the back straight. Bit of clarification on the strategy here. I'm seeing stint length 27 laps for everybody until Shane Coker in 15th place. So everybody, I assume, will be going long except for Dan Ensch, who of course does something different to what I'm talking about. As the ALZ.org representative goes to the pits for fresh tires and Speedway, not Speedway fuel anymore. It is fuel at the Speedway, but it is Shell fuel. As Dan Ensch rolls off the pits again. And there's more people exiting the pits. I think that's Thayer as well exiting the pits as John Christensen rejoining the track. We've got John's dad in chat. Scott, good to see you as well. Got some more people. Max VD Wildenberg. Can't figure out what his initials there are. We've got Mason Mitchum in chat cheering on Shane Coker and the Votive Racing teammates. Good to see you all in chat. Hope you're enjoying the race. As usual with these streams, please do let me know if there is any issues with the audio or the frame rates or anything else. I'd be happy to fix them as soon as I can. But in the meantime, Saucier, I believe, has dived for pit lane, and yes, Saucier in the pits. So that's going to hand the lead over to Zier, and Rayvon up to second now as well. So that is going to be an interesting call there. Because the teammates of Pressy and Semido, they stayed out. So they're going to clearly go longer. So splitting strategies here, as everybody up to P10 now is on 27 lap stints.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually. I thought that we were going to see more people sort of pitting in groups to be able to try and keep that draft effect going, but it seems to be the complete opposite, and seeing cars sort of peel off, you know, here and there, and you know, not necessarily as together as I probably would be used to. But as you say, the top 10 now all on 27 laps, so they've obviously been very light with their right foot, and we should be seeing some more pit stops hopefully in the next couple of laps.
Another interesting development here is Wagner and Averting are together. Now, if you remember, Averting was 2 seconds back, so it could either be that Averting's car is very quick and Wagner in clean air isn't as quick, or Wagner decided, you know what, we're still early in the race, I might as well just back off a little bit and get the draft of Averting so we can work together and move forward that way, because they're at the moment, they're 33 seconds behind the leaders. They're going to jump the leaders by quite a significant margin there once Solowich and Rayvon come out.
Yeah, this could be really interesting. I mean, I sort of hinted at this before the pit stop cycle sort of started. Yeah, you might see a couple of guys pitting earlier or potentially going longer and really working together. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, you know, where this sort of pans out and where it puts them. But you know, this could be potentially a really good move to get themselves solidly at the sharp end of the field.
Not sure if the stint lengths on my graphics are correct, because they're displaying as 36 lap stints. I don't think you can go that far, not even in traffic. But either way, Kostek Solowich is the last car to pit, as Rick Rayvon rejoins the circuit in front of right with Matt Wagner as he takes the lead. Rodin Averting moves up to second. And the top three now together. Lilac Zier has dropped a little bit, or has been dropped, I should say. As Zier is about 2 seconds back, losing a spot to one of the Pressy cars. What happened?
I really don't know. I mean, it could have been a mistake on pit road. It could have been a mistake, you know, going into the box. It could have been a mistake, or maybe a number of minute things happening. Potentially, you know, a bit of traffic, or not getting the exit out of pit road as good as he would have wanted. But you know, that's going to sort of put him now on the back foot and really sort of set up for a recovery stint in this second stint of the race.
Yeah, Saucier has lost a lap. I cannot see in the session events whether that was from a penalty or not. I don't see anything in the timing screen. There was a black flag cleared. I do see.
That's really interesting then.
This must be for speeding. This is a replay. This was the initial black flag, which I don't think was properly cleared, or at least not in the way it should be. As yeah, slows down for the pits and way over the speed limit.
Yeah,
so
it looks like he was just way too ambitious. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, he's sort of now going to be praying for another caution to get that lucky dog to rejoin the back of the field, but just a little bit too eager on the brake pedal, locking the front tyres, and then sort of gliding very not so elegantly over the pit speed line, probably well over that 60-mile-an-hour limit.
So closest battle on track apart from the leaders is with Hugo Gallas and Kostek Solovic. I don't think anybody else is really interested in anything serious about fighting in that way. So most of the guys in the field settling back into that fuel save rhythm from earlier in the race. Still 150 laps to go. It's a long way to go. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as somebody infamously said and then locked up in Baku Turn 1. But yeah, it's very much a waiting game at the moment. We're just gonna wait until the spice really cranks up here.
Yeah, it's going to be sort of from now until I reckon, lap 150. We're going to see a lot more room given as whoa.
John really got in the wall right there. Right as I switched the cameras onto him, John Christensen's day probably gonna be done here, at least for a good finish, because that was a pretty hefty hit on the wall. I'll quickly rewind here because there's no other way to really get the proper controls working. Apparently ATVO does take a lot of RAM and CPU, so let's follow along with John Christensen here, on board with the number 44 Velocity Online Racing Chevy. In traffic, can't quite tell who that is. One of them is definitely a Jordan Motorsports car, but coming through turn 4, picks up the wash and boom, just smacks that wall. Instantly dives from pit lane because he recognizes the car's probably damaged, and yeah, that is gonna not gonna handle too great as John battles it out of pit lane after some repairs, and he is back on track, but he will be at least 1 lap down, maybe even 2 laps down.
It was lucky that it happened on the exit of turn 4 for him, so he was able to bail straight into the pit lane and sort of minimize any damage that could have been done with having to do a whole nother lap with a damaged car. But unfortunately, he'll be loving the fact that he will get to use his fast repair to sort of get back out on circuit super quick. But he will join Saucier. He will join Saucier a lap down, and sort of now it's a battle between those two, which we need to keep an eye on, of trying to get that lucky dog for the next caution, which hopefully will inevitably happen, I reckon.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point, the fast repair. I think that is something that John opted to take right about now. Considering he was in and out of the pits quite quickly, I don't think he just needed the new front wing, just judging by the way he hit the wall. So yeah, I do suspect he used his fast repair right there to get back in the race quite quickly and battle for that lucky dog like you mentioned. But this brings me to another topic. This is not the typical Indy 500. Yes, we've got the 3 wide start. Yes, we've got the massive amounts of fuel saving going on. Yes, there isn't much going on at the moment, but there is green-white checkers in this. And lucky dogs as well as the fast repair. The reason for that is this is a special event that is intended for fun. Not everybody is an IndyCar driver per definition. Of course, nobody is an actual IndyCar driver, but part of the community. So the way that the organization wanted to keep everybody involved and happy, and basically decide as well that meaning the end of your race. To avoid that, they've added some, let's just call them gimmicks, because that's what they are, which will of course spice up the action for us up here in the booth. But as a sporting, from a sporting side of view, as a fellow driver, I wouldn't be too happy about it. But if it puts on a good show, then so be it. It's fun to watch. So if you're wondering about it, that is the reason. So yeah, that's why. As we continue to watch the top 5, 6, 7 cars now. 5 cars, as 6th and 7th are slowly dropping back from the top 5.
You're going to want to be a little bit more careful if you're sort of dropping. You're going to not want to see these top 5 sort of pulling away from anyone, really. I mean, it makes the racing a lot less exciting for us. If you see a breakaway group like this, we're lucky that it is such a big group of cars, but we see now, another group of 4 with Hugo Gallas and Solowic now down in P6, P7. So this is sort of the best of the rest. Oh my lord, what's going on there, boys?
Yeah, that's Semido and Povalones colliding in turn 1, and that is what the caution was for. I just saw it come out as you were talking about that, and yeah, as Semido struggles to get the car back on track. But that is the cause of the caution, and that is only the second caution of the day. And I say that with a positive amount of surprise, because I was expecting a little bit more chaos early on, but everybody so far, despite that accident, actually behaving quite well.
Yeah, everyone's sort of taken that special event, mentality into this of sort of make it to 75% before you really start closing the door, getting your elbows out and sharpening your tools a little bit. But I think that was just a little bit more miscommunication, and it looked almost like they, stuck together, sort of front wheel to rear wheel, and then it was just sort of not the most spectacular crash, but more just sort of a crash, where you would imagine the driver sort of going, oh, come on, like, could you not give me a little bit more room, or could you not lift a little bit, a little bit earlier than you maybe did? As, it looks like it was a mixture of, not giving enough space and washing up on old or with that dirty air sort of causing this one.
100% agree with that one. It's easy to do, but like I mentioned, the top line is very much the dominant one, so that's really what you're fighting for, and then the dirty air on that inside is just death, really. But let's see who is going to come into the pits here, as I would assume most of the field will. And there we go, I was right. Everybody in the pit lane. Nope, not a single soul staying out, except for a left car. That is, I believe, Jordan Hill getting 1 lap back. So, yeah, Lilac Zero in the box. Got Rodin Evening in the box now, as well as Talavera, Santos in the box, Ravon in the box, Solowic in the box. So everybody taking tires and fuel now, as we are about 2 full fuel stints into this race. So we've got 140 laps to go. That would mean you would need to save 20 laps worth of fuel, as we see a very tight race off pit lane, and I think Solowic is the one that won that race, and yes, he did. So Solowic gets up to P5. Great job on the pit stand there by his team to get out into the top 5. But it's gonna be all about to save that 20 laps of fuel, which is very much doable in 160 laps. Let's be real. There's plenty of time to do that. That basically means you need to save 4 laps per stint. So 34 laps is what you need to do. Very much possible.
Yeah, I mean, under these caution periods, you'd imagine these drivers have some time to cool off, have a chat with whoever they may be in a Discord call with, strategy wise or engineering wise. But that is very much not the case. These drivers have a number of different switches, dials, and settings that they can adjust to their cars. One of them being fuel maps. Most of these guys will be sat in 6th gear behind the pace car in map number 8, I believe it is, which is known as the fuel saving map. So that will basically maximize their fuel mileage, use minimum fuel, but then you don't want to be using that once the race goes green, because you will be going backwards very, very quickly. And since we are under caution, I forgot to grab myself a glass of water, Julien. So if you don't mind me, I'll be 2 seconds just to get myself a means to relinquish my throat.
Absolutely. So Ravon jumps Matt Wagner out of the pits there under that last pit cycle, so that's going to hand the lead over to the number 1 being in P1. So it looks like we are going to be about a lap away from going back to green, so that gives us a beautiful opportunity to do a quick rundown through the field. Rick Ravon has led 5 laps today, out in the lead at the moment for this restart, and he started 8th, so very nice jump up the order. Matt Wagner currently running 2nd, started 4th. He has led, let's see how many laps, 28, so the most laps led by far of anybody in the field at the moment. Lilac Zero currently running 3rd, has led a few laps, 6 laps today. And Lilac Zero is one who started 18th, so very much moving up the field. Mainly getting those moves done off the track, including battles with Pressy and Samido there a little bit earlier in the race. So Lilac doing a great job to get up to the front. Then we've got pole sitter Nicholas Pressy, who has dropped to 4th. Hasn't led too many laps today, but still very much in contention. And of course, we just saw Kostek Solovic getting another spot on pit lane. Is currently running 5th from 10th on the grid. So we're getting set to go back to green here in a few seconds time, as Kostek has led 2 laps. So here we go, back to green flag racing. Rick Rayvon gonna lead us to the start-finish line, and we are back on the way here for the PEC Indy 500. And immediately Matt Wagner challenging to the inside of Rick to take the lead off of turn 2. Lilac Zir gonna have a go as well now to Rick Rayvon's inside. No, decides to wait. Talavera in the back popping out as well. Not able to make any moves on Samido there, as we see another car in the background. That is Wilson, I believe, making a move to the inside, and sliding up of the track is somebody. Can't really tell who that is. It might have been Shane Coker there sliding up the track. We saw him struggle with understeer in qualifying, as he keeps it under control. But Wagner takes the lead on that restart. Rayvon 2nd, Lilac Zir 3rd. Then we've got Nicholas Pressy and Kostek Solovic completing the top 5. Then Enge just got back into P9. Samido up to 10th again, passing Brandon Taylor, sorry. So a very eventful restart here. As we see Saucier popping out, but again not really making any moves at the moment. Saucier got a penalty earlier in the race, if you remember, but now is back on the lead lap through the lucky dog. On board with Samido as he loses a spot to Christensen, who flies by on the outside line. And Christensen is on the move as we see Shane Coker in the wall once again, just like in qualifying. And Shane has got damage, he's going to have to pit. So that's a meatball flag for the 32, unfortunately for him. But John Christensen just flew by on the outside. That was a great move there by the number 44 on Saucier, who is now gonna fall into the... I was gonna say fall into the clutch of the car behind, but there's no car behind. Back to the front though. Battle for the lead still ongoing. Wagner really wants to lead those laps. Coming out of turn 4, last lap, lap 65. Rizza in the Vodafone McLaren Mercedes going to the inside of Dan Enge, getting the P10 spot. Very solid move there, as Dan Enge, I assume, is going to fall back into some fuel saving activities there.
With a fresh glass of water, I'm back in the booth, Julien. Sorry for taking so long, but yeah, no, it was a really interesting restart. I caught the end of that. But the guys are now completely back together, so this should be really interesting for the lead of the race. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus cars in this leading train. Now we see what is that? The I want to say Hugo Gallas. Santos with a lap car, sorry. Yeah. Going side by side, trying to make his way back to the front of the train. He's going to have a look. He's not going to be too happy about that. But yeah, this is going to continue on actually as we go through turn 3 and out of turn 4 onto the front straight. And they need to be careful here because they don't want to lose the draft, because otherwise that will sort of mess up a lot of strategy play and fuel saving opportunity.
Are those guys together on the track? I'm seeing them as I'm seeing Samido as a lap down on my timing screen, but
I want to say he would be a lap down.
Yeah, that is very much for position. I apologize about that. That was Samido getting by Santos, and now Samido moving up through the field to the inside of Gallus, who doesn't challenge it too hard, just lets him go. So Samido up to 7th. I really do apologize about that. My timing screen was displaying Samido as a lap car, but he clearly wasn't, of course, getting that spot on Santos. As now Riza also up to 9th place. Here is that move for position there. Just sizing him up, and Santos really washes up towards the wall, loses momentum, and that's an easy pass for Riza to make.
Yeah, that's something we're going to see a lot more of as this race goes on. You know, guys with older tyres or who have used their tyres a little bit more, really going to start struggling, especially out of turn 2. I've noticed that seems to be a troublesome corner, especially for the guys with a bit more, you know, wear on their tyres. And the result of going a little bit wider and having to get out of throttle is exactly what we've just seen in a large difference of straight line speed, and a relatively easy overtaking opportunity into turn 3.
Because I've got to move Rodin Eefting on Kostek Solovic to the inside and gets it done. So move Eefting up into the top 5. Solovic probably just backing off, finally learning some oval patience. I've witnessed Solovic racing on ovals for the last 6 months or so. The improvement has been very impressive. Solovic used to be a very impatient driver, shooting the gaps really when there wasn't any, just trying to move through the field too quickly. But now very much settling into a nice rhythm, gaining that experience. And yes, he does lose a bit of track position at the moment, but the cloud cover is settling in. Passing will become a little bit easier as the track cools off. Speaking of which, the track temperature currently is 89 degrees, so that is 5 degrees down in Fahrenheit from what it used to be at the start of the race.
Yeah, with the cooler track temps, we'll see a lot more closer racing, and we'll see those guys who are not running the gurney flaps, who are not running the little finned bit on their rear wing. They will start to come into play a little bit more in the traffic as the surface will begin to give a little bit more grip to the hot, sticky Firestone tyres that these drivers will be running. And that will help tyre wear as well, so we'll see drivers potentially running a little bit closer, maybe going for a move a little bit more often, as we see a couple of people look into the inside there off of turn 4. So this should start to get a little bit more spicy.
You can just see everybody looking for a bit of clean air to maneuver their way around the corners here. As Brandon Thayer, currently running 13th, isn't as far off the pace as I would have expected them to be. As I mentioned already, the Jordan Motorsports team struggling a little bit as car in the background hitting the wall. I think it might be Jordan Hill again, who is already running 12 laps down. But yeah, back to the front. Everybody just in a single file line. Top 10 within 2 seconds of each other.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting. If someone makes a mistake here, this could wreak absolute havoc for the top 10. Being so close together, these guys will have to make it inch perfect for the next 130 laps or so as we reach the end of this race. But I think at the moment now, these guys are sort of well into their stints. You know, they're settled back in after that pit stop phase, especially after that caution, as you see a couple of drivers potentially trying to cool off the engine or potentially go for a move further back in this train. But I mean, at this point in the race, as we mentioned before, it's very much so go for a move if it's almost like, you know, the goalkeeper's not even in the net. If it's an open goal, go for the move. But apart from that, I reckon these guys would be leaving it pretty safe in terms of the aggression levels.
Saucer looking to the inside of Riza, now switching to the outside, and look at him fly by on the outside line. That's another spot gained. Is it? As he now battles Gallus, who closes the door. Yep.
I would say closing the door was a very light way to put it. I would rather say he slammed it about an inch from his nose.
100% true, yes. But to be fair, there was some good hard racing there, a little bit too hard, I would assume. But Riza loses a spot to Lucas Santos as well. But in all of that, Saucier does move up to 9th. Although I can't quite tell if there is any damage. I think there might be some. Let's see if we can find a replay from it.
Yeah, I mean, I was literally just talking about these drivers taking the aggression levels a little bit easier as we go into turn one, and then he pulls off this absolutely outrageous move around the outside of the Vodafone car, carries the momentum, wants to make it 2, but just doesn't quite get the overlap, and then on the treacherous turn 2, the 57 of Gallas just gets a little bit of understeer, a little bit of wash, comes up the racetrack and uses every bit that is available to him. And obviously, Saucier is not entitled to the room as he has almost no overlap. And then, yeah, that is a pretty large bonk with the wall. I don't know if he'll get wheel damage or something off of that, but he seems to be running continuously, now quite far off the next group. So I would imagine he has some sort of damage there with the car, preventing him from keeping right under the rear wing of the car in front.
Yeah, it's got a lot of push loose in the car, which does kind of translate to some light suspension damage. So yeah, unfortunately for Saucier there, but yeah, got in the grey and just washed into the wall. Hugo did slam the door like you mentioned, but I kind of do agree that, you know, it kind of wasn't really on at that stage in the race.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to appreciate these guys, you know, trying to make some moves and trying to make some cool action and cool moments for us to mention them in the stream up here. But you know, I think that was sort of a little bit more on the ambitious side, and he didn't get away with it too lightly. But I mean, that could have ended a lot worse.
Got a question in chat if there's any way to brighten the view. I can certainly look, but I don't think so.
Well, Julien tries to sort that out for you guys in the chat. We'll ride on board with Bryce Saucier. I need to remember, not Roger Saucier. We had this same problem in qualifying with the displays and the drivers getting a little bit muddled up. But we assure you, this is Bryce behind the wheel. He is not wanted by any police force, as far as I know. But yeah, for some reason, using the name Roger, I believe it might be his dad. But I am yet for that to be confirmed. But he is currently the second of the Pressy Motorsport cars, Nicholas Pressy himself, up into P4 behind the 89, sitting nice and what looks to be pretty comfortable way further up in this train, as this is the train for the lead, and we are currently sat in 8th position. So just look at that, how close these guys are together, as Saucier tries to set up a move potentially on Samido in front into turn 3. He gets the run on the 8, decides better of it, but the 8 sort of lets him through almost there. I mean, you know, it was almost Saucier sent a message to say, you know, look, let me through, I want to go past, and the 8 just sort of, you know, opened the door and ushered him through it. You know, these guys are really taking it pretty strategic and pretty easy. Maybe this was them doing a little bit of draft swapping to close that gap, but I mean, you know, if you sit in the slipstream long enough, that gap will probably close itself anyway. So that was pretty interesting stuff there on lap number 78 of 200, as Bryce Saucier now closes up on to the back of the Fury Sim Sport number 222. But it looks like he's not stopping here. You know, he looks pretty racy at this phase in the race, Mr. Saucier. It looks like he wants to get back up towards the top 4, get back up towards his teammate in the number 94 in 4th place, and sort of use that team game. Remember, these guys did start on the front row of the grid, currently running in now 3rd and 7th place. So they're on a bit of a recovery run, it looks like, at this phase in the race.
Yeah, Pressy got up to 3rd. Got by Lalik Zeer, as now Eefting is going to look to the inside of Zeer as well. Watch that dirty here on the bottom line here. That's going to really cut Eefting out there, unless Lalik Zeer backs off, which Lalik does. So lucky for Eefting there, because otherwise that could have been a very nasty accident, just like the one with Povalones and I believe Christensen early in the race.
What this reminds me of, Julien, is 200-mile-an-hour motorway racing. You know how on a motorway or on a freeway, you sort of put your indicator on, you sort of give the guy the room if he's, you know, quick in the outside lane or whatever. This sort of, at this phase in the race, it's almost a little bit more gentlemanly. apart from when the drivers absolutely have to, like off of turn 2, we're seeing a lot of room being given, a lot of fair play sort of being implemented, and I think that is mainly courteous to how often these guys race each other here at the front of the field.
100%. It's a civil motorway driving at the moment, but just wait until Freebird starts blasting out loud on the speakers. Then it's going to be But in the meantime, though, we've got some moves for position there, as Pressy now got by Ravon as well for 3rd place. Now looking to challenge for 2nd, as Avethink has got all the way up to 2nd. So both of those two getting by Rick Ravon and Lilac Zier in the last few laps. So now Saucier and Semido are 6th and 7th for Pressy Motorsports. They've got about 2 more cars to clear and then they're with their teammates. As now Wagner defending the inside of Rode and Avethink. So yeah, we're closing in on halfway for this race already. And we've only been racing for about an hour and 7 minutes. So this race is very much flying by quite quickly. It will be done in 2.5 hours at this rate.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I really like that number 18 of Roland Eftink. He's sort of making the moves. He's sort of wanting to get to the lead of this race. He's sort of putting, the big dogs like Wagner, like Pressy, like Ravon, under pressure here in this race. And as you said earlier on, he's not the most experienced out of that top 4. And that's something that I'm really enjoying watching. The younger, less experienced potentially guys coming up in this race and really taking it to the big dogs.
Something just went wrong there as my screen just goes away, so we'll quickly step aside as I fix the issue here. I do think we do have sound back. We'll just check to make sure before I switch it back. And I do believe we are good to go. So let's get rid of that. There we go.
Yeah,
apologies about that, everybody.
May have jinxed us at the pre-stream, Julien. I said before we went live today, worst comes to the worst, the computer does a bit of a glitch, and we have a couple of moments of silence, which we did there. But it seems to be everything working absolutely fine, and we join things literally right back in the midst of the action for the fight for the lead.
Yes, Avethink trying the outside, but not able to get a run big enough to pass Wagner, who has led the most laps today, and I assume he will want to stay out in the lead. Very Simon Pagenaud-esque from 6 years ago, as the snake is coming back out to play here at Indy, as Ravon to the outside now of Pressy. Look at him go onto the outside, he's going to pull it off.
Oh wow. This is, that was all courtesy of that sort of stack up that we had into turn 1. We had a couple of guys at the front going 2 by 2. And that sort of really stacked this train up and sort of almost forced someone to make a move. You have that much of an overlap, that much of an overspeed rather, and it's almost given to you to try and make a move. And that's sort of what we're seeing now. Is now Ravon to the outside of turn 2. Hopefully he can hold it here and we don't get another Galaz incident from earlier. Space is given, keeps it to the outside, but he almost has no help. He's by himself, as the rest of the field should potentially stream past. There's now
big crash in turn 3, and there's at least 2 cars involved in it. Ravon survives though, as we are probably going to go yellow here in a second. Just waiting on the call from race control. No yellow yet, surprisingly enough.
Oh my word, that happened in a flash, and that looks to be, that is F10. No, I was really looking forward to seeing how he would get on in this race, but it seemed that maybe his aggression got the better of him ever so slightly, as I think that 3 wide into turn 3 really was sort of almost too early, as we've got another one in the wall.
Yeah, Santos and Gallas were battling for position right as that crash was happening, and they just flew by. But I'm trying to get a replay here real quick of that accident here, as I think we're gonna have to,
Oh.
Let's see if
you know what? Ravon was so lucky not to pick up crazy damage from that, because watch this. As Eftink goes into the corner, sort of squeezes Wagner. So I don't really know where he expected him to go here, and there's eventually contact is made. He loses the rear of the card as Eftink, and then sort of 4-wheel drifts up the circuit, eventually spins, and Ravon, bang! Right in the windscreen almost.
Yeah, Rick, I think he got so lucky by Netcode. Look at the tire pop back into place. That's some insane luck right there. So yeah, Eefting closing the door, slamming the door on Wagner. Not really. He didn't really have the room to do so, and that I suppose he kind of penalized himself for that move, considering he is the only car that really crashed. But yeah, Wagner and Rayvon now in the pits, as we are coming up on another round of pit stops here with 112 laps to go.
I would be really curious to see if there's a way we can see if Rayvon uses a fast repair here. You know, I'm going to go with worst case scenario and say he's going to be safe and use it anyway. So that's potentially now Rayvon. You know, if you've used your fast repair at the halfway point in this race, when it gets to... Exactly. So, oh, he did just use it. Okay, so he's now a fast repair down, let's say, compared to everyone else. And it's, you know, a topic that I probably should have covered earlier in this race. So now Rayvon, if you put yourself in his shoes, he's racing for the top 4 in this race. Everyone around him now still has that fast repair being able to, you know, they can use it. So they almost have
there, Jack. So on this screen it says FR, which means fast repair. 0 out of 1. So I assume that meant that they have 0 out of 1 remaining, but that means they have used 0 out of 1. So everybody until Samido hasn't used the fast repair, including Rayvon and Wagner, so they still have theirs. Samido has used his. Hugo Gallas hasn't used his. Then Santos, Christensen, and Jordan Hill have used theirs. Everybody else has not. So I do apologize. That's my mistake for misreading the graphic right there. But
no problem. Yeah. But anyway, so okay, maybe not in the event of what we just explained. But you know, if you are a driver that is racing for a top position, so let's take Samido for example, sat in P6 at the minute. He's going to want to be making progress through this race because let's be honest, no one wants to finish P6 at Indy. Everyone wants to win. When we get to the crunch time, maybe lap 160, lap 170, everyone's going to be sort of, you know, as I said earlier, sharpening the elbows, you know, sort of using their tools a little bit more to be a bit more racy. They're almost going to have a golden ticket, everyone else that is, apart from Samido. You know, if he makes one mistake which ends up in a bit of damage or ends up worse, you know, a big shunt, he's pretty screwed over. You know, he's going to be that day done, essentially. You know, there's no other way to put it, because he hasn't got that magic repair to get himself in and out the pit box just like that and be able to, you know, worst case scenario, be in the position that Wagner is in at the moment, being a lap down.
Samido and Santos battling at the moment, but yes, that is very true. They have to be a little bit more careful now, is Samido. But I think we just saw the result right there. Backing out of that move was Samido, as now Santos, I believe, came in the pits. So yeah, Pressy got up to second, Solovic now up to the front because Saucier has now pitted too. So a bit of moving going on as we get into this second pit cycle on the green anyway, as we see Zier following Pressy, who challenges Solovic for the lead and gets it, as Saucier now is off and away for his stop. And Gallas,
yeah, look, for the first time this race, we have a Pressy Motorsport car back at the front of this race, and I believe he hasn't pitted. I don't have access to see, you know, who's pitted and who hasn't, but I believe Pressy is sort of leading the train of cars yet to pit in this cycle. Of course, he's pitted this race because, you know, we're 94 laps in, but he is yet to pit in this certain cycle, and him and Solovic are going to be, you know, trying to build that gap, trying to increase their advantage over the guys that pitted just now or are in the process of pitting as we speak. And, you know, learning from that previous cycle that we had, sort of lap 40 to lap 46, the guys that did pit earlier had a massive advantage. And I don't know if all of the guys know that are on track at the moment, but obviously we do and you do at home. But, you know, that's going to be something that we need to look out for. The guys that pit earlier or on the earliest side of the pit window could potentially undercut the guys in front massively if they get the timing just right.
Very true. We saw that with Wagner and Eefting, where Wagner, I believe, backed off and they gained an insane amount of time on everybody else and got the lead that way. But Christensen losing a spot to Santos and Saucier having a look as well, but not quite able to complete the pass. Those are all people that already have pitted. So the top 3 stayed out and they're still circulating. Everybody from Rick Ravon on back have already pitted, and I believe the top 3 are in the pits right now actually. So there we go. Final stops of this cycle are underway, and we're only 4 laps away from halfway as well, as Samido to the inside now of Santos, going defensive a little bit, as now Saucier lines up Christensen in turn 3, completes it in turn 4 to the inside, and Christensen I think knows that he needs to take it a little bit easier, having already taken that fast repair, going back to what you were explaining a few moments ago. But yeah, Christensen doing good, up in the top 10, right with his teammate Hugo Gallas, who hasn't used the fast repair yet. So Gallas in a very good position at the moment, just easing into the race, as now Pressy rejoins the circuit, and they will be right with Ravon and Wagner, who do jump Pressy, but Pressy is right with them, so it's not all bad for them.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how this, these first 2 laps will be really, really crucial. Just in terms of the gaps and managing, because the pack's been split up for 5 laps or so. So no one's going to be, in the rhythm of having the dirty air, in the rhythm of having the slipstream down the back straight. And because everyone's sort of feeding back into this this train, I'll call it, even though everyone's sort of more spread out now, you need to be really careful, because these guys will be now knocking on the door of the region of where the slipstream or the draft may not be as effective as this train is experiencing here that goes past the camera. Those guys are much closer together compared to the leading few, and a mistake there can be extremely costly. You don't want to be 4th place and make a mistake on your outlap and lose that draft, because realistically, unless they're taking lumps out of each other at the front, you're not going to be getting that back.
Yes, I do agree on one hand, but there's also plenty of time for more crashes to happen, so you might get lucky with the lucky dog if you do end up being a lap down at some point. So it wouldn't 100%. Be completely over, but it would obviously, like you say, would be suboptimal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
big block.
Guys, we're not even 100 laps in yet. I think everyone might have been a little bit energized and fired up after that surprise crash we had taking out Rodan F-Tank about 5 or 6 laps ago, maybe even more than that now. The laps go by so quickly here at Indianapolis.
Yeah, just going to a quick replay here. This is the top 3 that we were covering a few moments ago coming out of the pits. So Wagner gets by Pressy, and then at some point here we see a move. So Wagner on the outside. Wagner was actually one from the block there. So Pressy to the outside completes the pass that way. Pressy was like, fine, you blocked the inside, I'll just move up and complete the pass that way. Easy.
That's incredible.
That one. Yeah, that was a great pass there.
You block the inside, fine. I'll just go the other way, completely round the outside. Amazing move, as they now have to navigate Javier Talavera, who is down in 15th place and now drops a lap down. So the top 14 are now all on the leading lap. But the thing is, as far as I'm concerned, especially in this race, with the rule sets we're running today, is the blue flags do not mean anything. So Talavera can make it as difficult as he wants. He can, be the certain type of guy to sit on the inside line and go, you know what, you're faster than me, you're more talented than me, you've got, a little bit more experience behind the wheel, find your way around me. And that is where a lot of incidents can happen in these sorts of oval races, where you have the slower traffic, as we now see Wagner try and negotiate Talavera, and I believe that was Solovic coming on the inside as well, following him through, as does Zia. So they managed to negotiate him pretty well there. No close moments as far as the eye could see, but yeah, the lap traffic in this could be a big part should we get a, I believe, 2025-esque finish to the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, if you recall to the month of May, that race was actually 2 months ago to the day, May 26th, I believe it was. So yeah, Palou won that race, and the reason why he couldn't get past, or at least the way he passed first, was with the fresh tires. Went to the inside when Ericsson wasn't looking, pretty much. And then traffic just meant that everybody was in a train of dirty air. They just couldn't do anything. Very much iRacing like, I'm willing to say. It's not Indy 500 as 2025 like, it's iRacing like. What the real life thing was. So, that's just the way that Palou won that race, and we might see something similar here as well with lap traffic later on in the race as Samido there and Santos battling still for position with Saucier as well. But Christensen and Gallas catching up to this group as well, and all of those guys, those 4 or 5 guys, really dropping behind the top 5. Zero is the last car from that top 5, running 5th. Of course, wow. Rocket science right there. That we should add that to the words of this game. Zir completing the top 5 at the moment. Those all those 5 people, they've just run away with this thing at the moment. We're halfway into the race, and a gap of almost 5 seconds. Even if you've got 2 teammates, Saucier and Samido, now working together after passing Santos, I don't think you're gonna catch 5 seconds like that, considering the top 5 has been very well behaved as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I briefly touched upon this earlier on at the very start of this race. These guys look like they've been spending a little bit too much time overtaking each other and battling with each other, and that is effectively the reason why they're 5 seconds behind. As you say, guys, come on. If we want a big 10-car train for the lead here, you're going to need to stop doing this, and you're going to need to start working together, because that gap's only going to get bigger. As only this lap, it's gone from 5 seconds up to 5.6, and we're only just entering turn 3. If it goes on like this, we're gonna see them dropping 5, 6, 7, north of maybe even 10 seconds off the lead if they have laps like this. But hopefully, the faster cars in this train can sort of get to the front and sort of screw their head on a little bit and go, you know what, guys, we're not. This isn't for the lead. This is for 5th, 6th, 7th position. Sorry, no, 6th position. Sorry. So, they really need to sort of get a move on here and start working together in the draft to start closing that gap down, or they're just going to have to wait and hope that someone makes a mistake.
Yeah, there's clearly speed in the VOR car, but I think what happened as Santos goes back to the inside of Christensen now, I think what happened in that case was basically all 5 of them deciding, okay, we're losing time, I need to go. So that really caught everybody off guard, basically twisting their tongue a little bit, I guess you could say, trying to get to the front of that group. So they all got in each other's way more than anything. And now they've realized, Santos and Christensen are probably going to pull this group to the front. Like I say, there is speed in the VOR car, seemingly at least. Considering they were 5.5 seconds back 1.5 laps ago, and now is right back down to 5 seconds. So they lost half a second in that 4-way fight, and they've gained it back as well in as many laps. So it's not all bad, at least for the moment. But yeah, like you say, they really do need to get a move on, because you can't really keep doing this for much longer, or else you're going to be in trouble with not only tire wear, but also fuel strategy. You have to make a fuel number. You also have to take into consideration any cautions, any accidents that might happen. You need to stay out as long as you can and pit that way, so you're at least on fuel cycle to go to the end of the race without making an extra stop. So there's so many things at this stage in the race going on, especially in this kind of groups of cars, that you really need to pay attention to. So I don't really blame them for, I guess, kind of getting a little overstimulated, I guess you could say, in the situation, but they can't afford to do that too often.
Yeah, no, this is why I'm not good at IndyCar racing, because if I was in the car at this position, at this moment in time, obviously I'd be thinking, look, we need to get a move on here, and we need to sort of start working together, which it seems like they are now, Santos and Christensen, as they swap into turn 1 once again. But the amount of strategy that goes on behind the scenes, in the driver's head, is absolutely incredible. These guys are piloting these cars, don't forget, around this Indianapolis Motor Speedway at speeds north of 210 miles an hour. And while they're doing that, inches from each other, they're thinking about weight jackers, roll bars, fuel strategy, engine maps, fuel mileage, when to stop, who else is going to stop with me, why should I stop here, would I be able to get someone to work with me, can I get to the front of this train to be able to pull it further to the leaders? They've, as we see in chat, Scott Christensen saying they've cut another second now. It was 5 seconds 2 laps ago, and it's now 4. They're really starting to put a shift in, and now you can see the gap is, I would call that half a straightaway. as they go, as the leaders now turning their way into turn 3. But something that will be really interesting is whether Dallara will stick on the back of that lead group, or whether he will start to drop back. If he drops back, we might see some more fireworks. He was pretty well behaved with the leaders, but who knows?
Yeah, you can visibly see that gap coming down as Christensen right there entering turn 1 with Santos. And there's the lead pack. Look, 1, 2, 3, 3.5 seconds is basically the gap. So those two doing a great job at catching up that gap. As Pressy, I think, has led the vast majority of the second half of this fuel stint. So those guys aren't really working together. They're just running in a line. But Christensen and Santos drafting is absolutely gaining them time, like you mentioned. So this is great. Hopefully Dallara isn't going to get in the way too much, which is slowing them down a little bit. It has to be said.
But it's as the leaders now start to seemingly work together. I don't know if this will last and how long for, as I believe Wagner now takes the lead. Yes, he does, in the number 6, away from the number 94. He sort of said, you know what, Pressy, you started this race, you dropped back to P5, you've now led the majority of this fuel stint. I would quite like to have the lead back, thank you very much. And, you know, potentially this could have been strategic from Pressy, leading the majority of the laps on this fuel stint, wanting to take his turn in the draft, see how far he can stretch his fuel stint. But maybe it's strategic in the sense of he wanted to lead this many laps so that he could get this undercut and maybe pick someone out or pick a teammate in where is he? Let's have a look down the field. Saucier is down in 8th position. Maybe pick out him and want to drop back if they pit together earlier than everyone else to get that sort of dilemma going of drafting by themselves with no one else around, minimal risk. And potentially they could have practiced this in preparation for the event. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see some team play sort of become more prominent as we head into, well, further into the second half of this race.
Just look at the run Christensen is going to get here. If it's not into turn 1, it will surely be into turn 3. He's not quite close enough, but he's going to shoot the gap anyway. And there we go. That's another slingshot pass for Christensen. They put in quite a bit of wheel input though. That's not going to be fun for his right front tire, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. They need to watch for tyre wear as well as fuel usage. I mean, we haven't mentioned tyre wear as much. Whoa. Oh dear, that's going to upset some drivers, especially as we ride on board with Christensen. What they need to be really careful of here is doing exactly that. You know, leaving the move a little bit too late, which could end up costing them more time than gaining, as he's now sort of stacked up this 3-car train that he's got behind him, has Santos. But they need to, it was close into turn 1 that lap before with Christensen, but I think that was maybe a little bit too ambitious.
100%, and now Saucier is going to have a go, I would assume. No, decides to wait. It has to be said though, they're only 2.6 seconds back now of the top 5.
Yeah, they've put in a really good effort here over these last sort of 10-15 laps or so. It's almost like they've got the commentary playing in the car with them, listening to our advice of sort of, you know, sorting themselves out and getting on with it. But you can see Christensen now has quite a large gap over Santos and Saucier here. But that was literally solely because of that move that Santos tried to do on Christensen that didn't go quite to plan. But you know, someone needs to tell the leaders that they're coming now, because this could quite easily turn back into one big train for the lead of this race.
Yes, absolutely. And also, this is Wagner going to the lead, so they're not really working together. They're actually fighting for track position, as you just saw. So Wagner does gain the lead, but at what cost? Well, certainly nothing at this lap, because they just gained 3/10 again on that lap. As now Christensen comes into the pits for his stop. So he will kick off the next cycle of pit stops, as we're already 30 laps into this. I remember the last cycle of pit stops being 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, the laps do tick around quickly, and I would assume that would be not that much saving going on down there. But we'll wait to see how this next one pans out. I'm really interested to see if we see any team play, sort of teams wanting to pit on the same lap to potentially create their own velodrome cycling team those who know what that is, as we see someone there in front of Santos. I believe that was Zia coming into the pits, maybe?
It could be. No, I think that was Wagner coming into the pits, the race leader. So Wagner has come into the pits. Yes, there he is. So he will kick off the pit cycle for the front runners. As Pressy, Rayvon, Solowich and Zier stay out, as well as Saucier, it must be mentioned. And all those 5 were among the people that stayed out the longest on the last green flag cycle as well. So look for them to go at least as long, if not longer, for being in traffic behind Wagner, to really extend that fuel window. But yeah, 84 laps to go. It's within making it on 2 more stops after this stop at least. So yeah, it should be 2 stops and then 27 laps of fuel to make it to the end. For those who have been saving, this is perfect because they can literally just go full push to the end. 28, 28, 28 to the end, pretty much. So look for them to really shoot forward here in this next stint, as we watch Rick Rayvon following Nicolas Pressy. Top 2 very close together. Rick has to be mentioned as well, has been very patient today. Usually Rick likes running at the front, in at least the races I've done with him, which it has to also be admitted, it was 2 years ago, but still, at least 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, so Prezzi's now leading this race, and as you say, Rayvon with his huge experience in sim racing, 30 years plus I think it is, he's not going to be easily fooled. He's going to have thought this one through, as we see the number 8, Samido on Santos potentially. That was very close off of turn 2. But as I was saying, you know, Rayvon with his vast experience and knowledge, and no doubtedly he's thought his way through this one. I would imagine that he's going to see that the likes of Christensen and Wagner pitted earlier, potentially doing a little working together, as we see a big move now as we ride on board with, I believe, who is this going on board with? Samido. On, is that Santos in front? Yes, it is. As Santos goes higher, we'll see how this pans out, if he gets a run on the cars in front.
Is this Santos?
Yes, no, this is Santos, so this is Saucier in front.
Right, let's see, do we get more takers for pit lane? No, nobody pits yet.
So this is quite interesting. The field really stacks up as they go into T1.
Look at that dive bomb by Lucas Santos. He's going to go for 2 for 1. Almost pulls it off. At least he got 1. Samido is, Social, sorry, has been ticked off.
Whoa.
Now working Lilac Zeer coming off.
Careful, boys!
And Santos almost did a Gallus there on, who was that? Samido, I think, actually was. Or Saucier, sorry. I keep reading Samido and Saucier back to back. But yeah, Santos now up to P4 as he clears Lilac Zeer for P4. Very aggressive at the moment.
Yeah, that was more like 20 laps to go, let alone 80, as we have more takers for pit lane now. I believe that's Rayvon coming into pit lane, followed by, who is that? I can't quite read the number on the nose cone. That's Brandon Thayer. Okay, so we've got the most experienced in the field down pit road. He obviously wasn't too keen on, well, I won't say World War III, but this sort of fist fight that sort of unveiled itself, considering the amount of checking up there was into turn number 1. So we'll start to see this sort of alternate train, I'll call it, form, as we have more takers for pit lane this time round as well. Only 1 car this time, so everyone obviously getting a little bit spooked and wanting to come into the pits maybe 1 or 2 laps earlier, maybe not. But as we now look at Mr. Wagner, who is the net leader of the race, I'm surprised he hasn't backed off more to work with the likes of Christensen, who is, I'll probably call that...
that would be a 4-second
4 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little
so
much.
Maybe actually...
But he did
not.
rejoin way clear of Rick Rayvon though. The gap is almost 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think that would be mainly just because of that massive fist fight that we saw about 2 laps ago. But yeah, I'm surprised that he's actually got that much of a gap though, considering, you know, they weren't fighting the entire time. So he must have some serious speed on new tyres.
Yeah, I think his clean air car is pretty good too. That's why he was leading so many laps, because nobody could really get around him effectively. But yeah, Santos now exits the pits as well. He is also 2 seconds behind Rayvon, so the undercut worth about 2 seconds there, if you get a few laps in clean air under your belt anyway. So now the top 6 are the last to stay out on track. Let's see if any of them come into the pits this time by. I don't see anybody come in. Nope, everybody stays out for the moment. Hugo Gallo's up to 6 now, right behind Lilac Zier, who is right behind Semido, who is right behind Saucier, and then we've got Solowich and Pressy. So everybody doing a great job to extend this fuel, and they're about to, if they can make this 5 more laps, they can make this to the end on 35 more lap stints. So that would be 2 stops. I think that's what they're trying to get to.
Okay, so that's a really interesting strategic plan that they've got there in place, you know, for the rest of this race. So to set that up, would they have had to have done excessive fuel saving, as we see who is this, Gallas, I believe, coming into pit lane now?
Gallas can't make it, so that leaves the top 5 now. Pressy, Solowich, Saucier, Semido and Zier out on track. They all last pitted on lap 96. Lap 93 to lap 97 is when they pitted. So Semido has pitted on with 31. Has pitted 31 laps ago. Sorry. Saucier pitted 32 laps ago, and then we've got Zier, Solowich, and Pressy, who last pitted 29 laps ago. So for them to make 4 more laps is very much doable. Maybe they can even do 5 more. And as I say that, Saucier pits. So those 3, Solowich, Pressy, and Zier, it's possible for them to make it if they've saved enough fuel on this stint. And now I'll throw in the big cliffhanger. We'll find out if they can actually do it, because we don't know until they come into the pits or not. So that's just the beauty of this game. Strategy very important here at the Indy 500, and it's coming into play as well here in this edition. The PEC Indy 500, a special event for the Platinum Endurance Championship. If you're more of an endurance racer, definitely join the racing Discord. Platinum Endurance Championship Racing Discord, and you can sign up. I believe they've got a season starting somewhere in August, is the last I heard. Maybe you know more about this than I do, Jack, considering you're around these guys way more than I am. But we've got more people for the pit lane.
Yeah, so we see, what is that, 2, as we look, they disappear behind the timing tower. I think it is only 2 more cars that come into pit lane. Yes, it is. And it looks like the number 8 of Semido. Yes. So they now come into the pits, and we'll see where they pan themselves out in the train that I believe is led by Rayvon and Wagner.
Side-by-side battle between Saucier and Santos. Those guys are out of the pits less than 5 laps ago. Christensen has caught the gap. He was 2 seconds behind those guys as well. So great effort by him. But I suspect this is going to cost them a lot of time. It doesn't look very efficient. And actually, they rejoin in front of Semido and Pressy. So they completely proved me wrong right there.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought running side by side for, you know, the best part of 3/4 of a lap is probably not the quickest way to run this race, especially in such a vital transition period such as this. You know, this sort of, I'll call it a 10-lap window where, you know, you have some guys pitting, some guys staying out. It's really all about just focusing and saving some performance for this exact moment in time where really just hundredths upon hundredths make the difference. Because, you know, as we've seen, guys that maybe pit earlier and get some good, you know, teamwork going with the slingshot drafting, they can make up places and even seconds upon places. You know, it's really vital to be super quick in this transition period as we ride on board with the number 89 heading into turn 3, and this is with the second place car that I believe is still yet to pit. Am I right, Julien?
Yes, Zier and Solowich still need to pit. Will we see Lilac pit? Nope, still staying out.
So these guys are not far off now being able to make it on that 35 or was it 34 lap stint to the end of the race.
Yes, it's possible for them to make it. I think the window opens to make it this lap, but ideally you go a lap more. just to give yourself some safety on that fuel cell, because you have to be in traffic to save this amount of fuel. If you're not in traffic, there's no way you're going to make 34, 35 laps.
Yeah, okay, so these guys here are really going to have to start channeling their inner Scott Dixon as they peel off into. This is going to be super, super close. As we see a pass in? No, we don't. I was going to say that could have been really, really cheeky from the 89 of Lilaxia there, potentially like trying to sneak up the inside of the Fury Sim Sport number 222 into the pit lane as he now stops in his box perfectly on his marks. Doesn't go long, doesn't go short. This is going to be a very good stop for him, and the same for the 222. So hopefully for them, they come out in a bit of traffic, and then they really have to roleplay their best Scott Dixon to try and eke out these 235 lap stints to the end of the race. As Julien said, it is possible, but they're going to need traffic, and they're going to need to have the world's lightest right foot. They're going to need to use every ounce of slipstream that they have available to them, and I believe they will just be tagging onto the back of this train that will be in front of Christensen and behind Saucier. So they fill the gap between the two trains that we did have before this fuel stint, but now it sort of seems to have become one long-ish, sort of slightly stringed out train for the lead.
Yeah, I just had to double check myself, but Zeer does go by she/her pronouns, so just for reference for the future. But yeah, they rejoin behind Pressy, Rayvon and Wagner. So all of those three did have a very excellent pit cycle. They got back to the top three. So that contradicts to what I was saying earlier. That was my mistake again. That was another white car in front of Santos, I thought, but it was Pressy. So Pressy does maintain third place. Santos and Saucier now round off the top 5. And look who is in P6, John Christensen. I'm getting excited for this. I shouldn't be, but yeah, it does make your heart beat a little bit faster. I'm sure for Scott in chat it does as well. Dad cheering on son John Christensen. But yeah, John doing a great job at the moment. Solovic didn't have the best of pit cycles. Solovic was right with the group, but has dropped off a little bit. Around about a second and a half has fallen back. So suboptimal for Kostek. But like I was saying earlier in the race about him, Kostek has kind of learned patience and playing the long game around ovals, which also includes saving tires and everything else. So I have no doubt in my mind, as he clears Christensen now for P6, that Solovic's race is far from over. Solovic should still be in for a decent shot at even the win, but a podium for sure should be on the cards for him.
Yeah, you know, I'm just actually going to point out how, you know, Christensen in the last sort of, well, the first half of this race was sort of a little bit more under the radar, not really making too much happen. But in terms of connecting those two groups, you know, the chasing group and then the leading group, he was a big player in bringing those two back together. And the likes of, you know, Samido, Galaz, and Zia, they really sort of hand a lot to him in terms of bringing them back into this fight. And we can really see him now working with that 222 to try and make his way up the field, as he's now actually dropped back a tiny bit. So I wonder if that maybe is a little mistake, or he's got a car that's better suited towards the end of a stint potentially. But he's really sort of been one to watch over the last 50 or so laps, you know, really working that second group hard to get back to the leaders.
Just want to quickly see what happened to Lucas Santos. Nothing at the moment.
Very wide.
Yep, that's so that explains why Lucas Santos dropped off so much. Lucas Santos has dropped from 4th place to 6th in just a matter of seconds, really. So unfortunately for Lucas, I think that is going to mean a damaged suspension. Let me check my timing screen though to see if he's already used the fast repair. And yes, Lucas has already used the fast repair. So that's
going to be race ruining. Yeah, that's going to be really unlucky for him. So he will now have to carry that through the rest of this race, and I doubt that he would want to take it at his next pit stop, because, you know, it's so important here. Every second counts, and, you know, the time that you spend longer than needed in pit lane is time where the main pack, I'll call them, just walks away, and, you know, you sort of get left in no man's land. And yes, you may have a faster race car now by yourself, but, you know, the draft is worth so much here that sometimes, even if you have the tiniest bit of damage, as long as you're in the drafting range, you can at least stay with the car in front. You may not be able to overtake, but at least you sort of can preserve your position.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I hope for Lucas his damage isn't too bad, but it's clearly affecting him in traffic because he just can barely keep up to Solovic up ahead. So, yeah, I think it's basically going to be day done. I don't even think it's repairable, the damage that he has, because it's related to the suspension, if anything. So yeah, that's going to be really tricky for Lucas to manage. But I've raced against him for a long time. I think he'll manage and still come away with a strong finish. But yeah, I do have to admit, and I hate to do it, but I think the win or a podium are definitely out of the question, at least for now. Unless there's an accident, which could of course spice things up quite significantly.
Well, I mean, we've still got the business end of this race left to go, but yeah, as you say, you know, it's hurting him to keep up with the rest of this pack. And what I'm worried about for the likes of Galaz, Samido, Zia, and Christensen behind is, you know, they worked so hard in the previous stint to work back up to this leading group. The last thing they want is someone with damage, you know, slowly dropping off the leading group to sort of undo all their hard work.
So currently we're watching the top two. Ravon and Wagner together have led half of the race. And Wagner is well on track to secure the most laps led, which doesn't give you any bonus points because it's a special event. I mean, technically I guess it does, but they're not worth anything, considering it's a standalone event. But yeah, Wagner doing a great job there being in the lead. He's clearly got a fast car, so does Rick Ravon, because he has been up at the front of this field pretty much the whole way. The only reason he's been back in traffic a little bit early in the race was simply to save fuel. Everything else, he's just been at the front.
100%. You know, Wagner he seems to be on a pretty good run of form lately. I mean, on my notes here, you know, he's had a good result recently in the Horizon IndyCar series at Michigan. You know, he's been around quite a while in these cars. You know, he's a clear favourite in the Votive League. So, you know, he's on a clear good run of form recently, and he's carrying that on over to this Platinum Endurance Championship Indy 500 special event. And, you know, Ravon, Pressy, you know, we're sort of seeing the guys who should be challenging for this win potentially coming out of their shell and more moving towards the sharper end of this field as we get closer and closer to the business end of this Indy 500.
I think I just saw Lilac Zier just about lose it coming out of turn 2, but she keeps it under control. As now Lilac is going to line up Lucas Santos, who has got a wounded race car to fight with as well as other people around him. So Lucas is going to struggle to hold on to this, I think, but he'll give it a good fight and give it the beans, so to speak. But yeah, just really impressive by Ravon the way he's been driving this race. So has been Matt Wagner. 100%, you're right in that. It's kind of funny that the two oldest guys in the field are at the front of the field as well, but that just goes to show how far experience really does go in these races, because you see it time and time again, not just at Indianapolis, but basically every other race. You have a really good mix of younger fast drivers and old guys who maybe don't have the outright speed, but they just make the right decisions every single time. There's just no wrong that they do, or hardly any anyway. And that just keeps putting them in contention for good results. And that's just the way Scott Dixon, like you touched upon earlier, also pulls off these pretty much amazing results. Because he won Mid-Ohio a few weeks ago too, when Palou made his mistakes. That's all about putting yourself in the right spot, as Santos gets high up into the wall almost. Again, as Zier looking to the inside now. 4-3, backs off. Gonna have to wait.
You know what? She needs to sort of go about this really, really carefully, because she doesn't want to get too aggressive, and she doesn't want to make a silly move, put the nose of that Indy of that Dallara IR-18. And what has happened here? Crazy checkup as we go 3 wide into turn 1, and she picks up another one potentially. No, so she's gonna slot in and get the perfect view as we watch Santos versus Pressy in front. And I believe Santos comes off better. So Santos now goes up into P2. And where's Wagner gone? He's down in P10. So what has happened there?
I think Wagner has pitted, but I'm trying to figure out what happened to Solovic. Did he hit the wall?
I don't know. I mean, I was focusing on this this sort of situation that Zia found herself in, because, you know, she needed to find a way past the damaged Santos without losing too much time and without risking damaging the car and wasting that very, very, very valuable fast repair. As I can't tell if this is live or whether this is replay footage, but this, okay, so this is live. So we have now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars all together, as now Christensen is a lap down?
Yeah, he just came out of the pits.
Okay.
Christensen pitted. I also figured out what happened to Solovic. At least I think so. Solovic, instead of maybe adjusting for some weight jacker, I think he pressed his fuel knob by accident. That's why he suddenly lost so much momentum and everybody was swamping him basically on the straight. And he did gather it back up quite quickly. Still runs 6th, but yeah, suboptimal as Christensen did pit. So he is now the first to pit of the leading group. Along with Matt Wagner, who is out on track here, just on the edge of the lead lap, I believe. The timing ticker just scrolled through. We'll find out in a second or two. As Wagner's on the lead lap, so that was a scheduled stop. He of course pitted earlier than everybody else as well. He was basically off cycle. So Wagner is going to try to make this as fast of a race as possible for him. So he's just going to go full throttle, full no save, full blast, and hope for the best, because that's really all he can do. And the guys at the front, like Rick Ravon, Lucas Santos, Nicholas Pressy, Bryce Saucier, Kostek Solovic, Samido and Zero as well, they're all gonna try to save the fuel to go to lap 165. So that's 20 more laps they need to eke out to make it to the end without making another pit stop.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting actually, but I mean, so what we've seen so far today is the power of that undercut. You know, we've seen it time and time again where cars pit maybe 2 to 3, maybe even 5 laps earlier than the cars around them, and they somehow just have such good clean air pace by themselves that, you know, we've seen gaps of up to 2 seconds being pulled out in this sort of overlap phase as we now ride on board with what I believe to be the second place car of Santos. Yes, it is. So we're on board with the number 5. He's going to go up the inside of the leader, Rick Ravon, who's not going to put up too much of a fight. So this is what I believe. They are by themselves. Okay, so they are what seems to be about 2 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. So they're going to be trying to pull away as much as they can. Rick Ravon, as you know, I mentioned earlier, again, hugely, vastly experienced guy, been running at the front of this field all day long, and I believe IndyCar is sort of the only place where, you know, experience beats all. We've had really, really young drivers and less experienced drivers, I should also say, in the likes of Roden Eftink, who unfortunately crashed out earlier on in the race. But, you know, that was probably just lack of experience. He squeezed, I think it was Wagner, down to the bottom of the racetrack just a little bit too hard, and then sort of it was end of his race from there. But, you know, if you just have the knowledge and you have the experience and you can read the race well, like Rick Ravon has done all day long, as well as the likes of Wagner, you know, the old age and experience compared to the rest of the drivers is just such a big tool.
Yeah, speaking of that accident, that happened on lap 99, I do believe is the incident here. No, that's not the incident. Tried to find it, couldn't. Anyway, moving on.
So we now hit lap 150, so 50 laps to go. We have been slowly ticking down the laps here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and finally I can say, you know, we're sort of casting our eyes towards the end of this race now. 50 laps to go. The guys behind the wheel are going to be thinking about, you know, where am I going to want to put myself going into that final stint? Where am I going to, you know, want to put my weight jacker? Where am I going to, you know, who's fast? Should I do my moves off of turn 2? Should I do my moves into turn 1? You know, it's going to be a game of chess at 220 miles an hour, I believe, from now till the checker flag. Of course, we still do have our green-white checkers. We have 3 of those. I should maybe remind everyone at home. So should there be a crash with 2 to go, we will get a green-white checkered. And should another caution come out on the first lap of the restart, then we will get another restart. And that goes on 3 times until then. If we run out of these green-white checkered opportunities, it will practically just be a race to the checkered flag. I don't believe a caution will come out. Maybe it will. If it does, then the race...
No.
Okay, yes, so on the last lap, no. But if the caution comes out on the first lap of the last restart, forgive me if I've lost you, we will then get a caution and the race will finish under safety car.
Yes, on the last attempt, that is very correct, yes. You know, those green-white checkers, they might sound simple, but when you're trying to listen to somebody explain it, your brain just gets lost.
Yeah, I should write it on a little Word document and then just plonk it in the middle of the screen for about 10 seconds, and then everyone should hopefully understand and get their head around what I've just said.
You know, most sim racers are amongst my kind of people. We're a little bit autistic. So if you use a few graphic images, you know, of the color green, white, checkered, you know, green is go, white is last lap, and checkered is the finish. If there is a yellow on the white, it finishes. But if there's a yellow to the left half of the green-white checkered kind of dots, then it's another green-white checkered. You know, maybe that explains it better. But we've got nobody in the pits still, which kind of surprises me for the people further in the top 8. I would assume that Solovic is going to be one of those people that cannot make it, including, as I grab the timing screen again, if it wants to work with me. It does not for the time being. I'll figure this out really quickly.
Just noticed a message in chat from John's dad, Scott. He's dropped what seems to be 2 laps down now. So I don't know whether he's made a mistake in traffic or whether something else has happened. But yeah, the commentator's curse, I'm afraid, Scott. You know, he was doing so well, was John. And then as soon as we start pointing out the efforts he's put in to really bring this fight back into sort of the range of 8 cars rather from 6, it looks like he has gone now 3 laps down. So it looks like it's day done for John. If you can go up and have a word with him, you know, if he's not too annoyed, we'd love to find out what happened, Scott. If you could then
put right now as well. This is Dan Ench following John Christensen.
Oh.
Quite catch if he got the roll or not. I was literally looking to the time screen right that second. Let's go back a little bit more.
It seems... Okay, so they're coming into turn 3. Turns in, everything's okay. And... bang! Yeah, you were right, just clipped the wall. Does very well to save it, mind you.
100%, but yeah, that was a very unusual error because he was all by himself. There was literally no need for him to really hit that wall.
I guess that's a good sign of just fatigue starting to set in as we now knock on the door of potentially, you know, what are we saying, 2 and a bit hours into this race now. You know, these guys have been turning left for the best part of 2 hours, and you know, although it sounds pretty easy, as I mentioned before, when you have things like fuel mileage, car adjustments, you know, pit strategy, not hitting the wall, not hitting another car, managing dirty air, you know, making sure that the guy behind you doesn't get a run, making sure the guy in front of you doesn't pull away. There's a lot of things that stack up on the mental side that suddenly makes turning left a little bit more difficult.
2 people who aren't slowed down by the mental fatigue are Hugo Gallas and Lilac Zier. They were battling for the lead a few moments ago, and Hugo Gallas is now in the lead, but yeah, this is just gonna turn into pretty much a waiting game until the last stops. Was that a call for yellow, or did you say something?
No, I didn't say anything. Is that me? I don't have any audio on my end, so potentially, but I haven't seen anything.
Is in the pits, though.
Okay, so we now have the leader into the pits. We'll see where he feeds out. We've lost a few cars, I think, in this cycle, or at least, you know, just as the cycle started, we had that incident where I can't remember who it was. It might have been Wagner who flicked on what you said was a different fuel mode. Oh, Solovic, sorry, and that sort of jumbled everything up as the pit cycle started. So it'll be interesting to sort of get a concrete definition of the order coming out of this next pit sequence.
Yeah, so the top 5 are still yet to pit. The longest runners of those are Pressy and Saucier with 31 and 32 laps respectively, and then Semidio also 31 laps, by the way. Lilac Zier, Caustic Solowich have ran 26 laps, 27 now. So they can probably do 3 to 5 more laps, which would get them just outside the window. So I think it's a splash and go at least for every single driver in the field. I don't think anybody in the field is going to be able to make this on one more stop after this one. Or well, one more stop really. This one would be the last stop if they could make it, but it won't be. So it should be 2 more stops from here. Most of those people, including Wagner, Rayvon and Santos, I assume would be splitting this up into 2. So they've pitted 5 to 10 laps ago. So that would make it 25 laps per stint, more or less.
Okay, so that idea of the likes of Zia maybe being able to eke out the 35 lappers to the end, do you reckon that's still on? I mean, she's sat behind what looks to be Brad and Thayer at the moment. Is it, full fuel save Scott Dixon mode for her at the moment?
Well, why don't we take a look and listen with the inputs as well. Yeah, definitely a little lift, bit of braking as well to slow the momentum up. So yeah, good question, and we got our answer right there. So Lilac using Thayer to draft a little bit more, maybe try to eke out that just those final few drops that she needs to make it to the end on one more stop. It's gonna be so difficult though, as Solowich I think is the next car in the pits. There was another car.
I think Solowich it was Sus. I saw a flash of red, so I think it could be Saucier. Yes. Okay, so he's the next one to come down the pits as we have a couple more cars on their way out. So we'll see where that puts him. So we are looking at... So who's the leader of the second train, I'll call it, the already pitted train? Is that Rayvon? Yes. Okay, so they're now rounding... This will be turn 4, won't it? Yes, so they round turn... 2. And that
it's
should
okay,
be...
you have some mental fatigue as well after 2 hours of racing.
Yeah, no, after 2 hours of talking straight, this is the longest stint I've done in the commentary booth. So, walking into my first event in the Indy cars, I thought I'd give it a go. I'd see what it's like. My knowledge isn't the most extensive compared to, I'm sure, some people watching. But I'm trying to give you the best of my ability anyway, as we see Rayvon potentially looking to the outside of Wagner for what would be the net lead, I would assume.
Yeah.
As we still have 2 cars, which are Zia and Solowich, yet to pit some 27 seconds ahead of what we're looking at now.
Yeah, Wagner took the lead from Rayvon a lap ago, down into turn 3, and now Rayvon... actually, that's Wagner and Rayvon going past a lapped car. But I believe they're trying to work together, as I think I heard a slow car in the background. Pay attention to the timing screen, because there might be somebody off the pace. Is that Saucier?
I'm not seeing anyone.
I'm pretty sure I very vaguely heard somebody hitting the wall or slowing down with a little bit of tire scrub going on. But it might have also been an iRacing glitch. or my ears are playing. That could also be very realistic.
Fatigue is hitting us all.
Very right. So we're in the window to make it on a massive fuel save, and Zier and Solowich are still out there. So if they can make 1 or 2 more laps, and watch as I say this, they come into the pits this time. If they can make it 1 or 2 more laps, they still need to save, but critically they can race the final 10 laps of the race more or less. So they're putting themselves in a really good position, at least to make the finish. But no, Zier's going to have to pit. Solowich stays out. So Solowich can go 1 more lap, which is going to be huge on this last stint, because you burn 2.5 liters a lap around this place. So if you can burn 2.5 liters more, that's an absolutely massive amount to burn.
That's really, really interesting. I mean, yeah, so as you were saying, he's sat 3rd in the queue behind, who is this, Thayer, that he's now overtaking. So yeah, he sat third behind Zia and Thea, and what that does is, although the slipstream is still massive if you're the second car, imagine you have two cars in front of you. The slipstream then is even bigger, and I think that's what's earned him that extra lap. And it's going to be really, really touch and go whether Zia will be able to make that fuel save now, but it will definitely be a lot easier for Solovic because he's managed to make that extra lap more than Zia did in the 89 car. So I reckon Zia's going to be having a little bit more of a tough time. We might have to see her giving up places to avoid burning a bit more fuel, whereas I think Solovic...
100%.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas we see Solovic may have a little bit more in the tank to sort of fight his way or fight his corner come the end of this race.
So there's cars coming out, one car coming out, and there's cars coming up to Solovic. Zero was quite far back from Saucier, so that's going to be suboptimal for the drafting range and fuel range. But look at Solovic, he rejoins right behind Saucier, so this is perfect for Solovic. If he can save fuel to say lap 180, 185, then you can slowly start moving up through the field in that group. And then the last 10 laps you can absolutely hammer flat out because you wouldn't need to worry about the fuel. So if I'm in Kostek's shoes, I say, I'm going to use a bad word here, I'm going to save the living shit out of the engine. And then once you hit 10 laps to go, you're just going to go full send it because that's all you have to do. Remember, Ravon, Wagner, Santos, Saucier, Gallas, they all have to pit. Solovic and Zier, they're going to have to save fuel, but they can go to the distance. So if I am Solovic, like I'm already getting up here in the booth, I'm getting very excited because I would know that I am probably going to win this race unless there's a caution. And this is my channel, so I can use bad words if I feel like it. Liam O'Sullivan predicting a caution on lap 191. Interesting. Sounds like we've lost Jack for a brief moment, but yeah, we're coming up to 30 laps to go in this thing. And Rick Ravon leads from Matt Wagner. Bryce Saucier just lost a spot to Lucas Santos. You see it on the bottom of the screen. Goes by and up into the third place.
I do apologise, Julien. I made the world's biggest rookie mistake of forgetting I muted my mic. I was speaking for a good 2 minutes there, trying to explain what I saw as a Cars 1 moment. In the first opening race, when you see Lightning McQueen come into the checker flag with the rest of the pack tearing down on him towards the line. Hopefully we won't have 2 flat tyres on that Fury Simsport car, but it will sort of give off that kind of energy. He'll be out front, the rest of the pack will be hammering it towards the end. He might still need to fuel save, him and Zia in the 89, but we'll see whether Zia was a bit more touch and go with her, I think, depending on whether she will make it or not. But yeah, definitely for the number 222, it will definitely give off reminiscence of that famous movie scene.
So let's take a quick moment to listen to Solovic, how much he may or may not be saving down the back straight here. Maybe this is not a good indication because he has a bit of a gap to catch up to Gallas. But yeah, what I was saying is he's got 34 laps of fuel, 33 laps actually, to go the distance. So he'll need to save a little bit. But he is 100% the best chance to make it to the end. As Saucier and Santos battle it out at the front. If I'm Solovic, I played ultra safe and maybe even let Zier go as well. Because everybody around you can't make it.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the only person he's fighting for the win as it stands, realistically, if everything goes to plan, is the 89 behind him. So yeah, Julien, that is a really good call. What would you just sit behind the 89? If a gap opens up, that's sort of on her plate necessarily to make sure that gap stays really, really close and within drafting distance. and I'm surprised he's not doing that. I mean, you know, we might see that later on if that ever clicks in his head, but you know, potentially it could be just a play on track position, because if the yellow does come out, it does sort of change and shake up the game in all senses.
Well, there's two sides to that coin. First, to answer your question though, I would absolutely drop to the end of this pack, because let's see, Solowich is 10 seconds behind the leader. The next car up in front that is closest to the leader is Lucas Santos. He's 9 seconds up, so he's a second up the road from Solowich. Then behind him, Semido is the last car. He is a second behind him. So really, you only give up a second and a half at most, and you're at the back of that train making monstrous amount of fuel, which can easily get you to the end. Now, if there's a yellow, everybody's going to be in the same boat anyway, because it's going to be a pack race. So, you know, if I was in the cockpit, I probably would know what I would do. I say probably because I'm not actually in the cockpit right now. So, little disclaimer right there. But yeah, I mean, if you're Kostic, I would absolutely drop to the back, because right now he is third, fourth in line. He still has to push a fair bit because the guys up ahead are pushing. So he's not making the fuel he really needs. And Lilac Zier is doing the perfect thing for her. She's making those big amounts of fuel behind Kostic. So yeah, if I'm Kostic, I would definitely put my car a little bit further back, optimize those chances. As Saucier collides with Santos, and Santos in the wall, and that's day done, and there is not gonna be a yellow. There it is. So never mind all of that.
Yeah, everything we'd been talking about for the last 10 minutes almost, completely out the window. Forget all of that. We are now going to have a 25 lap pack race. Winner takes all at the Indy 500 after Santos collides with the wall. I didn't catch that. So, Julien, I think you're going to need to do most of the dissecting on that one.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring it up. So, okay, that happened way up ahead. Okay. So this is going side by side through turn 2, and yes, that's Saucier taking a bit of a higher entry than Santos anticipated. And yeah, that's just a racing incident between those two. Santos really just wasn't expecting that high entry for Saucier. And there's two sides to that coin as well. One could say Saucier needs to turn in earlier, but the other could also say Lucas needs to use his side view mirrors a little bit better. So, yeah, unfortunate deal right there.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, compared to sort of lap 50 when we were saying all these guys are sort of, you know, leaving it a bit more, leaving that 10% on the table, we're sort of starting to see now incidents like this where they're less willing to leave the room. They're less willing to give up the position, you know. We're getting towards the business end of the race, and the drivers know that as well, and this is where we see these sorts of things prop up more often. And it was almost a carbon copy of the incident we had just before the halfway mark that took out the young Roden Eftink. Yes, so it's sort of getting to that point now where, you know, we might see the effect of cautions breed cautions now, that famous oval saying, because this is and will be a sprint to the finish, and I think all the drivers know that as well, as everyone pours into the box, gets their fuel to the end, gets their new tyres, as Brandon Thayer gets most likely that's going to be a brand new set of 4 Firestone tyres, because the drivers have no limit to how many tyres they want to throw on the car here today.
Yes, good point. So everybody on fresh boots. They're gonna be restarting from a little further back than he was gonna enter the pits because he overshot the box. So yeah, that now hands the lead over to Matt Wagner. As we'll do another quick through the field here while we can. So it's Matt Wagner up at the front. Has led the most laps today. By far 71 laps. That's I was going to say almost halfway, but not quite there. Close enough anyway. Rick Rayvon running second. Has led the second most laps today with 31 laps. Then Nicholas Pressey, the pole sitter, has led 27 laps. Bryce Saucier, 11 laps led. Hugo Gallas is now up into the top 5. Has led 4 laps. And then we've got Solowich, who we thought was going to be the favorite to win the race based on strategy, has led 10 laps, but is now going to be in traffic. As well as Lilac Zier, who has led 14 laps. Mitchell Semedo started on the front row as well, has led no laps surprisingly yet today. Dan Henshin, the ALZ.org Chevy, has led also 0 laps. And Brandon Thayer, still runs in P10, also hasn't led any laps. So, yeah, pretty diverse set of leaders here in the race, as we'll cover the progress here of everybody else. Brandon gaining 2 spots, Dan Hensch losing 3 spots at the moment, Semedo losing 5, Zier gaining 11, biggest mover at the moment, Lilac Zier on a tear at the moment, and then Kostek also gaining 4. Hugo Galles is still where he started. Saucier 2 spots down. Pressy 2 spots down, of course, started on the pole like we mentioned. Still runs on course for a podium. Ravon started 8th up to 2nd. And Matt Wagner, of course, who we know led the most laps, started 4th. So, lights on the pace car are already out. And we will go back to green flag racing here in just a short moment.
So we've watched 178 laps of racing. The pit stops are now done. Unless there's another caution, the safety car will no longer be seen and no cars will be down pit road for the rest of the race. So we've watched 178 laps of racing. Forget all of that. This is now the race. We start from square one. Everyone's got the same amount of fuel, most likely the same tyres. Everyone's going to have fresh boots, as we mentioned earlier. So this is going to be a street fight, gloves off battle to the finish, as Wagner brings us to the green flag, and we are back to green flag racing here at the Indianapolis 500 as we start lap number 179, and Wagner gets what seems to be a very good start at first glance. He needs to be careful though of Rick Raven down this back straight as they exit turn 2. We might see some snaking. There we go, to the inside and then back to the outside goes Wagner to try and defend his line into turn number 3, but it looks like Rick Raven has just gone, screw you, I'm gonna go wherever you don't go, and has the best part of waltzed around the outside of Wagner so far, but he seems to be holding his ground as now Pressy wants to get in on the action, almost 3 wide as we head into turn 1.
Yeah, Zier, Galles and Semedo did go 3 wide briefly into turn 3 on the back straight, but now Wagner to the lead, Ravon second, Pressy third, still no change in the order from the restart, but of course, like you mentioned, they did go almost 3 wide down the front straight. And this is an absolute hornet's nest now. 20 laps to go here at Indianapolis. And we were expecting a pack race with the cool conditions. We didn't get it because everybody wanted to save fuel. But look at this. The gloves are pretty much off already now. 20 laps to go. Rick gets up high, loses some momentum. As now Saucier gets to the high side. Oh!
This is really, really good racing, guys. This has been worth the 180 odd lap wait. This is the best guys in this race at the sharp end of the field, going toe to toe. Some of the best in the IndyCar community, fighting it out for top honors here in the Platinum Endurance Championship, Indianapolis 500. As we now look back from the the second place car, which is now the leading car of Wagner, and you just look off his rear wing, off the T-cam, and you just see everyone waiting within a 50-meter gap. Look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars waiting to get in on the action, and this is where the skill and the cool, calm heads really come into play. The dirty air has always been here, and it will continue to be here until the checkered flag, but it is absolutely mind-boggling how these guys can run 200 miles an hour under this intense pressure of coming up to 15 to go and manage to not hit each other, not hit the walls with almost no runoff, and still manage the dirty air. This is absolutely incredible racing as we go side by side once again into turn 3, and all this is doing is backing up that pack behind. We're going to keep the entire top 7, looks like almost the top 10 now in this group, as Wagner keeps it firmly to the left-hand side. And look at this, we're going nearly 3 wide into turn 1. Lilac Zier there, nearly in on the action as well. She was looking to get a piece of this fight for the lead. As we now head out of turn 2, and I need to give my voice a break. So Julien, please take over.
Gladly. So, just look at those people running in the back of this group. We've got Samido, Gallus, Rizza, and Denench as well. Those guys are taking it easy because they're pretty much expecting a wreck, which, to be fair, could you be wrong? Look how close everybody is running. You almost saw Zier sending it 3 wide, but she knows better. She's been around long enough not to do that. As now Wagner gonna lose the lead to Zier as Rayvon slots into 3rd place. Across the line.
Side by side.
Yeah, Wagner does lead the lap as Zier can't quite pull the pass off, but Rayvon now losing 3rd spot as well to Saucier on the high side. And
it's almost like a NASCAR race.
Yes, Daytona, Talladega, yes.
Yeah, we've almost got 2 consistent lanes going here. Now, I just want to bring up something quickly, Julien. We had a prediction from Liam, the race organizer, for lap 191 for the next caution. Now, I'm going to enjoy these next 6-7 laps of green flag racing before that predicted caution comes in, but we almost had one there as Saucier took a massive sniff at Rayvon's rear wing, potentially nearly turning him round as we get the perfect view of 3 wide into turn 1.
We're gonna say so many woes and whoa so many times like Fontana 2015 because this is just mental. This is absolutely crazy. Yes, now Saucier almost in the grass there.
This is going to be incredible, almost on the grass, Tony Kanaan style down the back straight, as now Rayvon looks to the outside, thinks better of it, tries to get the switch back, the over-under, potentially to try and get a better run on the short shoot into turn 4. But now, you know, you're going to be stuck on the outside in that position that Zier finds herself in at the moment with no draft. And now you see Rayvon moving back to the outside. Solovic wants a piece as they now chop and chive in between each other. The gloves are well and truly off now. Everyone's brought out their weapons. We are now in a proper fight for the finish.
Yeah, this is crazy. They were literally banging wheels down the front straight. That's absolutely insane. Look at this. Can they go through that again? No. Wagner still holding the inside though. He is just refusing to give it up. Oh! Almost slides into Saucier on the high side.
This is really close racing. You know, I highly respect all of these drivers for keeping it so clean for the best part of coming up on 10 laps now since the green flag dropped. Guys, we're not going to go 4 wide. This won't work. Rayvon, with his vast experience, thinks better of it as more. Oh my gosh, as Saucier and Wagner comes oh so close together, nearly causing a wreck in the worst part possible in front of the entire field. That would have not ended likely. And you know what? I would have quite liked to be the likes of Denench, Hugo Galaz at the moment. I think they are expecting this wreck to come any moment now, as look at this is more like NASCAR rather than IndyCar racing, as we see Rayvon now trying once again around the outside. Saucier, oh my gosh, choppy to the inside across the front end of Wagner, as we oh my gosh, I can't keep up, Julien.
This is just the time and place where you just literally sit back and enjoy, because until the last 2 laps, there's no point calling it because it's going to change every single second anyway. So, yeah, Rayvon now up to 2nd again after losing some spots earlier in the last lap, as he now goes to the high side. But everybody until right about Hugo Gallas and Lilac Zier now settling into a little bit more of a rhythm. I assume the tires are going to fall off a little bit as well at this stage in the run. So lap 191 very much could be on for Liam. But yeah, we wanted a cool, literally and figuratively, race. And we are getting it. Oh, yeah. Wagner almost lost it.
Yeah, we have 3 wide. Oh, super wide. Oh, what happened there?
I don't know, but he's gone from the screen.
Oh no. We're still green though, I believe. What happened there? It looked like some monumental netcode, as then Zier still tries to find the way past Pressy, almost prying open a gap. She squeezed the inside line and managed to find a perfectly Dallara IR-18 sized gap on the inside of Pressy there, into turn 3.
Solovic is now up in the lead with Saucier. Solovic was the favorite to win on the alternate strategy, but he might still do it anyway, just on pure speed and I mean, balls, really. As he is
It's
now
not the way
battling
to put it,
Ravon.
Julien.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not beating around the bush, it's just true. Look at him go. Zier now to the middle. Down the back straight. Saucier defending. Whilst we do have a little bit of a moment, let's take a look at what happened to Matt Wagner here really quickly. So this is Wagner here. Not quite clear, and I think there was a little bit of a netcode tap there.
Jeez, and then in the wall, and then another netcode tap. Oh no! So one of the most experienced guys in the field, a victim of the netcode on iRacing, almost eradicating his ability to continue his fight at the front of this one. So he will be among Team Liam, trying to... oh, he did actually maybe get a tap there from behind. But he will be begging for a caution with the best part of 9 laps to go now, as we scramble to get back to the live footage, and you look at the timing tower, 0.01 between. This almost looks like a formation lap. Look at this, as they're still all glued together within a second, almost a little bit chilled, I would say, compared to what we've had recently. But I mean, to call this chilled is just a perfect testament to how active these last 20 laps or so have actually been for these drivers. And after driving for the best part of nearly 2.5, nearly 3 hours, to be able to pull off a performance like this, as now the number 1 car of Raven wants to go to the outside to try and get around the outside of Bryce Saucier, and he does, gives a big squeeze to the inside of that number 7 car, taking all the clean air off of him. Saucier uses all of his talent, reaches deep into the talent bucket to be able to keep that one on the road, and ahead of the likes of Solovic in the 222. Pressy as well, as they go 3 wide into turn 1 once again. Hopefully this ends well. We don't get a massive crash here, but I mean, Ragnar would love it if these guys crashed. That would bring him right back into it, as Rizza then shoots to the inside of the short chute, up the inside of, I believe that's Zia, who then gets the switchback. No, it's not. It's Mr. Pressy. So what's happened to him?
Pressy just dropped off, I think, from the dirty air, got some wash and had to back off. But yeah, Rizza is up to 6th from 17th on the grid, along with Lilac Zier. Those two are definitely the biggest movers in the field. Lilac Zier started 18th and running 5th. So yeah, we're coming up to 8 laps to go here this time by, as we went 3 wide last lap. This one is a little bit calmer, at least for the moment. Ravon to the lead, and now Saucier gonna get it back. They're almost banging wheels again, going into turn 1. Saucier recognizes and has to give a little bit more room, as now Ravon clears. Oh, Gallus to the inside. No, that's not Gallus. That's Rizza to the inside of Samido. They almost collided there. Rizza almost on the apron. And the top 4, the top 3, 4, yeah, 4 has now broken away from the rest of the field, as we now have a race for the win between 4 cars. Rick Ravon, Bryce Saucier, Lilac Zier, Kostek Solovic. Those 4 are going to be in the fight for the win. I don't think anybody else really has anything for them, not in the last 6 laps. As now Zier closes up to Ravon, but Ravon closes the door. No way through for her, as now Saucier again pinching Ravon to the inside, as I'm also losing my voice. I'm doing this on no drink, I'm pushing through it, just like everybody else is pushing through the dirty air. But Ravon again defending the inside line, and this very much is a pack race towards the end of this thing, because this is just completely nuts. These conditions are putting on an awesome race. Just look at this, 94 degree track temp, that's 34 degrees Celsius. That's a not ice cold, but it's chilly, and it's putting on a race for the ages almost.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Julien, what I wanted to point out is, you know, once that top 4 broke away, Samido, Pressy, Rizza instantly, you know, they flipped a light bulb, knew exactly what was up, got back into a single file line, and look at this now, best part of a lap and a half later, we're back as one massive train, as we now continue this huge mammoth fight for the lead of the race. Somehow, Ravon is leading this one. Not for too long though, as Zia is the middle of 3 into turn 3 to the inside of Saucier. She has put in a massive move to try and gamble all on the table to get the lead of this race. Ravon manages to keep the lead, and now we are still sort of in this sort of weird single file-ish line, but I mean that won't last long, as Saucier has nowhere to go. He backs out. Solovic to the outside, going super high to try and gain some will try and gain some place and ground on Saucier, who washes up, almost putting Solovic into the wall as we now enter the back straight for the third last time. Lap 197 of 200, and it looks like we could go green all the way as into turn 3. Once again, Zia this time in second place, challenging Ravon for the lead. Everyone's sort of... I don't know, it's almost...
Stop talking. We talked about this last week. Every time we say something is going to go well and goes clean, it's not. Just stop. 3 wide again across the line. 3 laps to go.
It's almost like Ravon is glued to that inside line. He knows what he wants to do and where he wants to place that IR-18 of his. And that is on the inside line. Glue it to the white line. Make sure you have the inside as you don't get then caught up in anyone else's accident should he drop further back, as we're now continuing to going 3 wide. The rest of the pack, you know, Rizza, Galaz, Dan Ench, they sort of... It's almost like they don't really know what to do. I mean, you know, with the dirty air, they probably can't do an awful lot because almost every single line and a bit more is covered with IR-18 at the moment. But once again, we've got Zia to the outside, backed by Solovic. Those two have worked amazingly over these last 25 laps or so as we come to 2 to go. Zia, she tries a move around the outside of Ravon. She's still there, given the space just about. Not quite got the overlap, but then look at Saucier, even wider. Loses a place potentially to Solovic, who then picks the inside line, but it will be a drag race 2x2, just like Noah's Ark, down into turn 3 for the penultimate time almost. Oh my word, what a final lap this is going to be as they round turn 4. The next time they come round this corner, we will see an Indy 500 winner. It's going to be Zia versus Saucier versus Ravon. On to the last lap we go then. The final lap here at the Indy 500. I wonder who's going to get here first. As we go down into turn 2, Zia looks to the inside, Ravon blocks it off. As
oh no, Zia in the wall! Saucier goes by for second, Ravon is going to snake down the backstretch. This race is going to go official. We did have green-white checkers involved, but they're not going to come into play here. Ravon defends the inside. Saucier looking to the outside now. Going to try to get the momentum off. But now look at Samido in the wall. Oh, they're wrecking up in front of the leaders. And that's Ravon. Oh no, Ravon gets taken out on the last corner of the last lap. And Kostek Solovic wins the Indy 500. Oh my god, what a finish.
I mean, we said that he would win it like 40 laps ago. The caution came out, threw everything up in the air, and he's turned round to us in the commentary box gone, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway. That is an absolutely biblical finish to the Indy 500. I wish that happened in real life. Obviously, without the accident, we definitely don't want that to happen in real life. But I mean, we were denied an incredible finish in the real life Indy 500, and I think this is more than made up for it. What a finish!
And just remember, Lilac Zir was in the wall coming out of turn 2 on the last lap. And still comes away with second place. What a finish.
Incredible. That is incredible.
Oh.
You can tell those two are happy about that. They worked together for almost the entire race. You know, Kostek Solovic and Lilac Zir, you two should be incredibly happy as they stumble across what looks like a completely rattled and destroyed Saucier, who wants to get a push, I believe, across the line, as we've got 3 cars, one off being our race winner, Kostek Solovic. I don't think that will really be going anywhere yet, as he gives up to go and do his donuts almost into the wall. Careful there, Kostek, that's going to be a pretty expensive bit of kit there you've just got yourself now. Don't want to put that in the wall.
Gotta go into the museum as well, in the PEC museum.
Yeah, exactly. As oh dear.
That is gonna require some new parts from the Dallara factory down the road. But Kostek Solovic with the win. Absolutely incredible finish. Let's take a quick look and see what happened there on the last lap. I think this is with Dan Ench. It may have happened in front of him.
I think it happened with the leaders almost, Julien. I think it was, yeah, so look, we already come across. Yeah. Oh! And then he sort of has nowhere to go. So Danage sort of picks up the pieces in what seems to be a horrific accident.
Oh, Ravon got tagged.
My Lord.
I thought there was a slow car in front of him, but he got tagged. Oh no, let's take a quick look at this. So this is on the last lap of the coming to the last lap. This is on the last lap. Sorry. So Saucier on the outside. I should probably get a different camera angle, but I can't quite reach it.
It's
So-
almost, yes, he comes up. So it's the same thing we've seen all day long, Julien. It's just cars coming up and coming down at the same time. Both cars going airborne. And I've just seen in the YouTube chat F5 Tornado on track. And this is more like Hurricane. I won't come up with a synonym because none of mine that I will come up with off the top of my head will be very good. But that is a horrific accident. And there you see Dan Ench coming in with nowhere to go and collects.
Yeah.
Saucier.
Forget El Reno, it's El Rig Rayvon. Or El Rayvon.
Yeah.
Oh, that really sucks. You hate to see that. Let's get another quick replay here, if I can, from Rick and then the chopper camera here. Yeah. Oh. Such bad luck for Rick. You know, he's always in these positions, and it seems like every time he's about to win a big race, something like this just happens. And I mean, I hate to be a judge on this, but I do think Rick came up more than Saucier came down. Don't want to put this entirely on Rick, but that's kind of what it looks like to me, which is hard to do to maintain your line like that because you're full of nerves and adrenaline and everything. So the slightest, 1 millimeter can basically feel like that, but it really is a centimeter that you're moving. And in races this tight, it's just too much, unfortunately. So hate to see that for Rick, but yeah, it's just what happens on the last lap of these races.
It's so unfortunate for him. I mean, he was up at the front all day long. Him, Ragnar, two of the top guys with the most experience within the space of that 25 lap sprint to the end, both being completely eradicated from even a top 6 finish. I mean, that was something that I personally would have never seen coming, at the start of this race. Even at the halfway mark, they seem so strong.
Yeah, they were definitely the class of the field, Rayvon and Wagner were. But unfortunately, it wasn't their days for both of them. So let's take a look at the race results of the Platinum IndyCar Championship Indy 500 special event as Kostek Solovic wins in front of Lilac Zera and Nicholas Pressey, who did start from the pole, comes away with the podium. Raid Rizza started 18th, gets away with a 4th place finish. Hugo Gallas top 5, great result for him. Mitchell Samido from the front row to 6th place. Brandon Thayer in, one could argue, the slowest car in the field, pulls it off in P7. Dan Ench does finish P8 officially. Bryce Saucier finishes 9th, and Rick Rayvon does still complete the top 10. But that's absolute heartbreak for him. As now I can't remove the results from my screen because my overlay is taking it on my second screen. Where is it?
Julien is trying to sort out his technical difficulties. I believe we have 3 of our drivers waiting in the interview room. So, Julien, who should we get? Should we get the race winner up? I'd love to hear his opinion on today's race, especially that last 25 laps and even that last half a lap.
Absolutely, I'll bring him in right now for you.
Okay, so we have Mr. Kostek Solovic, the winner of the Platinum Endurance Championship Indy 500. How does that feel, Kostek?
That feels great. I mean, wow. That was just a bit unexpected, considering what happened on last lap. I have no idea what happened between the guys, but I was just like blown away by whatever was happening in front of me. I saw 2 cars ahead, like up. I just went to the top side and yeah, I have no words, honestly, because that's my first Indy 500 win, and I think first like league oval IndyCar win, which is kind of good, but at the same, I feel like Indy 500 can be like not be counted as much because it's a bit random, like in this race. I was not expecting that completely. I was thinking about making a run into the last last straight into the finish line. But yeah, I'm very happy.
Yeah, no, I can tell by the elation in your voice. I mean, we had you down before that final safety car. You know, we sort of figured out that you were trying to make the fuel go the distance, and you were trying to make that 35 lap stint work. And you know, if there wasn't a safety car, we had you down to win the race anyway. But unfortunately for that strategy, the safety car then came out, and then you were something down by, I think it was like 8th position at one point, you know, and then we saw you sort of, those last 25 laps or so, that sprint to the finish looked absolutely mental, and you managed to get away with the win. I think that's absolutely incredible. But, you know, just talk us through that last restart. You know, are you speaking to anyone in the team? Do you have an engineer with you or a spotter with you here today? You know, are you going through strategy coming to the restart there?
I had no spotter. I was just counting the fuel like a calculator. But actually, there were like 3, I think, people that would make my strategy work, because I figured out that my 6th gear is very good actually in saving fuel, and I had like perfect balance on it. So like I could save a lot and I could be fast at the same time in this gear if I'm like trying to overtake somebody. So I just went the whole race just saving. Lilac Zia and Nicholas Prisi, the guys that like 2nd and 3rd. These guys, I think Nicholas was kinda off our strategy, but like Zia was like, we were wheel to wheel comparing the strategy. So he would like make me run probably into the line. But I tried to make, you know, 1 lap longer after that. Then the yellow came out, kind of stupid one, but the yellow came out, and I just decided to box so I can like go the last stint all the way in, all the way with the full like mode 1, the full power, the tires also. So I will have like full control over the balance of the car, because I know that it's like it's going to matter. I think it was very bad considering like last 2 laps. I remember I was going straight to the wall, but like the last lap was just got a bit fresh air into turn 2, turn 3, and I just made it stick. Guys crashed, and that's how I won.
As the old saying goes, to finish first you need to finish, you know, and you put yourself in the right position at the right time, and we thought that you would have faded into the background a little bit in the nicest way possible with, you know, that strategy not going your way, but you managed to bounce back from that, think on your feet, and really get the job done in what seemed to be a completely gloves off battle. I mean, Julien, do you have any questions for Kostek?
Yeah, I have got one, and this is mainly targeted for you and your team especially. We know that you're pretty new to oval racing. How does this result? What does this result mean for you and your team especially, considering how new you guys are to the scene?
I mean, the team is going to not only like it, but I think that there are a couple of guys that tried to make it to the Indy 500 official iRacing Open thing. We had plenty of good guys. We had some guys that tried like 2 days ahead. You know, we've got nice setups, and I honestly think that maybe. I mean, I'm going to push. I'm going to push into oval side because I started to like it like a month ago. I really got into stock car racing, and week ago I started doing dirt ovals, and I'm just very, you know, curious young man that is trying to try everything that iRacing has to offer right now. So I'm just trying to find myself, you know, somewhere comfortable. But my team, I don't know. There are so many different people there that I cannot tell. I cannot predict what will who will do what. Who will like participate in future oval races or something like that. I don't know. We are trying to launch a formula side of the team that is going to like mainly do formula things. So I mean, I'm open for everything. So that's my statement to the team. and they just support me. So maybe somebody will get I don't know, inspired by my win. I don't know, like somebody will just do the same as me, just try it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to launch you guys and Fury Simsport in spectacular fashion like you have today, you guys have definitely made a step into the IndyCar racing and definitely made some noise in your what I think is your first major appearance in an IndyCar event. So as Julien, I'm sure is very keen to see you back as well. I'm sure you guys will go away and really thrive on this win. And I hope to see not only you but some more Fury Simsport cars in races to come.
Yeah, I hope for it too, man.
Okay, so Julien, any more questions?
No, I don't. Kostek, as is tradition, before we let you get the milk, of course, please do feel free to shout out any particular people, sponsors, or anything of the sort.
So shout out Abruzzi for sponsoring the team. Shout out Mitch Ian Green. If you see that you're the best guy by buying the setups, it feels nice. And shout out the whole Fury Simsport. Maybe something will I don't know. Maybe this win is going to lead into something in the future.
Perfect. Thanks for talking to us, Kostek. Congratulations. Times 100. Oh, I guess I could say times 200 because the amount of laps you won. But yeah, go out and celebrate and recover nicely because you got another league here starting up next week at Homestead. So
Yeah, I know.
we'll see you in a week.
We'll see you. Yeah, see you guys.
Congratulations. Goodbye.
All right. Looks like we've got Dan Ench and Nicholas Pressey. Let's start with Pressey because Pressey finished on the podium, I do believe. Hi, Nicholas. Congratulations on your podium result. Started from the pole, didn't quite win the race, but you did come quite close. Just talk us through, first of all, the start of the race where we saw you drop back a little bit, and also those insane final couple of laps for you.
Start worked out pretty good for us, I'd say. Early caution around lap 10-ish. I don't know what happened, but when we all had to save a lot of fuel to make it to the end, and it looked like it was going to go that way. We were all pretty close on making it. It was definitely a stretch. The hard limit was about 37. And then we had a yellow come out, and all of a sudden, it's like, well, two more of them come out, and it's like, okay, we don't have to do that anymore. The goal of this race, as our first foray into open wheel IndyCar as a team, because we've never done this before. We're a very small team. So we don't get the opportunity to do many things like this. Usually, our open setup stuff is just reserved for special events. We don't do this kind of thing very often. The goal is just simply to not look stupid, and I don't think we did. We made a last minute change to the setup that was admittedly a bit drastic, and it worked out beautifully in our favor, warts and all. That being said, everyone wanted to win this. I wanted to win it. Bryce definitely wanted to win it. And it's a shame that he didn't get to finish the race because of the last lap. But I don't think he'll be too mad about how it went, considering we all gave it our all. And when you do that, when you go out like that, even if it's even if you didn't want to go out, given the circumstances, I would call this a good success for us.
Yeah, no, I mean it was very very successful. I mean, you guys, put two cars on the front row last week, and then today, you started on the pole. You did a really really solid and consistent race. You managed to avoid all hell that broke loose in turns 3 and 4, and then you managed to come away with a podium. So to answer your question of you hope you didn't make you guys look stupid. I mean, in my opinion, and I'm sure Julien will agree with me, you did quite the opposite in rather make a pretty big name for yourselves in your first event here. But yeah, I mean, what was your take on the final two corners? Because what we sort of made of it was two guys going for the same bit of tarmac. Maybe one coming up a little bit too soon compared to the other. But I'll be interested to see what your take on it is.
I will. The rest of the team is reviewing it over back in our server, but the initial conclusion I can draw is that simply the consequences of, the last lap at Indy. Everyone's going all out. There's nothing left to hide or to give up. There's no concessions, and sometimes in that situation, it doesn't exactly go well for everyone. It doesn't end well for everyone. At least that's my initial take on it. I don't know if the rest of the team will feel the same, but unless I have the opportunity to actually go back and look at it in detail, that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, you have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of as a team. You guys did an awesome job on the setup and also the driving. It has to be said as well. Like Jack said, putting the all cars of yours on the front row is mighty impressive. Like you beat a bunch of people who've been driving this car for years, including mine. So, like I say, nothing to be ashamed of. Just an awesome job all around, and just congratulations on the podium.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
So, of course, for the winner, milk is tradition. But what's tradition for everybody else is the handing over of the mic to you for finishing on the podium. Feel free to mention any sponsors, family members, friends, anything of the sort.
I think the first person I'd like to shout out is my mom. She's been in the hospital for 3 years now, and all things permitting, it looks like she'll finally be able to come home on Tuesday. So it'll be great to have her home again. That means a lot to me. Obviously, I'd like to thank Mitchell and Bryce for going through this silly thing with me. I had a blast. I tried to find as many people as I could because I said, okay, let's see if we can do this, and I'm glad we did it. I'd like to thank you guys and the rest of the PEC for putting on something that was so much fun. I'd like to thank Drip Diecast and Collectibles for being able to put this car through the year, basically. The team's always looking for sponsors, so when you got one that's able to stick with you like that, that's really nice. I'd like to thank Liam for being the one to come up with this whole thing. It's like I said, it was just so much fun.
Perfect. Well, I do happen to. I know you said you didn't do too many open setup things. If you like fixed setup IndyCar racing, I know a place. We can talk about that later if you're interested. But go on and celebrate your awesome team result, and also I have to say I'm really happy for you that you can see your mom at home again. So yeah, best wishes for you and your family, all the health and everything. And we'll see you down the road and hopefully another special event like this. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's really good to hear about your mum, Nicholas. Go and celebrate. This should you guys should be really proud of this.
Okay.
All right, that's actually quite touching. I have to admit. You know, I don't want to get too personal here, but I lost my grandmother 2 months ago. So yeah,
Oh
it's
wow.
it's you know, when you talk about illness and death and those kind of things, it kind of hits me now. But yeah, Jack, just an awesome race, especially towards the end. It was absolutely chaotic. Any finishing thoughts on this and anything forward for the future, maybe?
I mean, judging by this, I might need to get back in an IndyCar at some point. I mean, I'm more focused on my road and sports car antics at the moment. There's some big stuff coming up for me, hopefully. But you know, yeah, IndyCar is a lot more exciting. You know, maybe I need to step in the booth a bit more with yourself, Julian. I've really enjoyed this last 2 weeks. You know, sitting alongside you in the booth there and getting a different aspect on the racing going on, and you know, just being able to see all round just some really good racing, and then being able to speak to the guys that make it all happen and have all the talent after the race. You know, it's incredible to meet all these different personalities, and it's a really good experience and a nice environment. So yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed myself thoroughly.
It's been a pleasure to work with you as well, and I would definitely be open to that. So if you're watching, you have a league which runs at European times, considering we are from Europe. I am hereby opening, I guess, the sign up sheet for broadcasting. If you are interested in it, contact me, Julien Altena, on Discord, or you can email velocityonlineracing@gmail.com. We'll discuss all the details, whatever you need. We're specialized in IndyCar stuff as well, so we can do Formula One, we can do other things. Let's just discuss that if you're interested. But yeah, that's gonna lead me to some finishing words here as well. For those of you who have enjoyed watching this stream, who have enjoyed racing it. We have other leagues as well that run IndyCars on European friendly times, including the Global IndyCar Challenge on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. UK time, as well as the VOR IndyCar Series, which starts next week at Homestead, which we touched upon with Kostek, who is going to run in that as well. Full length races, 9 races, 2 road courses, 7 ovals. For those of you who like open wheel cars on ovals, it's free to enter. It's going to be an absolute blast with fixed setups. So you don't need to tune your own thing. You can just show up with your best abilities and race hard as you like. Of course, we value clean racing and everything else of the sort, which speaks for itself. So if you're interested in the GIC or VOR IndyCar series, make sure to join the Discord as well as the Platinum Endurance Championship. Of course, it has to be mentioned. For those who are more interested in endurance racing, they have a new season which will start up pretty soon, I've heard. So the Discord link is in the description. Make sure to join any of those Discords if you're interested. Want to give a special shout out as well to Dan Ench, who is waiting for the interviews, but we won't have time for that. ALZ.org. Please do go to the website for more information, as well as the option to donate for research against Alzheimer's disease, as well as other sorts of dementia. It's very important to get the word out, get as many dollars and euros in as you can to help fund that research to hopefully find a cure someday. Dan also has a sick mother, unfortunately, which we've heard him talk about last week. So very personal for him and therefore also for us, because Dan is a great friend of ours, and we just want to help him and anybody who suffers from Alzheimer's disease in any way we can. So once again, alz.org for more information or the option to donate if you are able. So yeah, that leads me to the final thank yous. To Liam O'Sullivan and the rest of the PEC organization, to you, Jack, once again for being here with me tonight and also last week for day 2. All the drivers who came out to show and race and put on an excellent one at that as well, and those on the podium as well. Everybody in chat. Andrew Schultz for making the overlay. He's a bit of a pain sometimes, but he puts out excellent work. So thank you, Andrew. I love you. Yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for everything and anyone here at PEC. I want to thank everybody once again for everything, and hopefully we'll see you all down the road for a future PEC special event. So thank you all once again, and we'll see you next time.